we spent a lot of money getting to this point. It sounds like it might be worth spending a little bit of money getting some professionals involved that might be able to save us a lot of money.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
What if we, could we send out an amendment to this particular RFP and add that, I know this, probably hate to do that, but rather than to send
do it independently first.
Yeah, let's do little chunks.
rather than to send another RFP out.
My thought was to...
Wait a minute, hear what you're saying.
Yeah, my thought was we have select firms that we know have had success with the Central Valley Regional Board. My thought was to go and pull back the RFP and then go directly to those firms and go, hey, we've listened to you. Now we're going to issue an RFP that is what your recommendation was. Please bid on it because we're taking your recommendation and issuing this RFP. That was kind of more of a personal touch type thing. Right. And then pull back from those other ones that we know maybe don't have that success. But I'll let Jim.
I think I've heard that there is interest in this RFP, though. That's what I've heard.
Well,
so.
A little.
Yeah.
Very little.
So there's portions of the RFP, the receiving water study, that address this issue.
Yeah.
Renewal. But the RFP is very broad. And as soon as we put the RFP out, initially, you got a consultant just like Stantec come to us and say, hey, wait a minute. You know, we can't bid on this. It's too broad. But what we can do is what Stantec just proposed. So this is the second time. My thought was back 4 months ago in January when the board began that we should have had a decision
Just
point
stuck to the
of
little one.
NPDS or no NPDS. We should have decision point, not a receiving water study, not let's go ponds, let's decide, change what the previous board said, which was terminate the NPDS permit, and a lot of professionals believe it. There's a lot of good reasons to terminate the NPDS permit. Please try not to, Mark knows he can talk better maybe than Ann, but nevertheless you don't want to. Or you want to make sure that keeping the NPDS permit is the correct thing to do. So, because to save money.
Yeah, I think trying to go the other route to eliminate it and recycle all of our water is going to be extremely expensive, fraught with all kinds of maintenance issues and additional manpower. That's the reason I was against it.
Dan's been trying to say something for a while there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm upset. I'm glad to hear this, but I'm really upset because that's one of the first things when I talked to George a while ago. I says, why in the world can't we get a firm that has an outstanding reputation with the water board to go out and study this right where the water dumps in, determine, why do we have to test it right here? Why can't we go 100 feet away and test it? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And get a firm that's going to tell us this is how best to do it because there's nobody downstream that uses our water for 10 miles. Why are we so concerned? Why can't somebody do something like that? And so we don't have to spend $15 million. I'd rather get even if we don't do any RFPs, pick the firm that within the community they know that has the best reputation with, the best results with, the best communication with the board and say, gentlemen, this is what we need you to do. Here's our problem. Here's what our situation is. Resolve it for us so we don't have to spend a fortune. I'm not knowledgeable like you guys are, but this is a common sense move to me. Can we do this?
Sure.
Yeah,
So this would be a paper step only, and then if that didn't prove out, the next step would be dilution or...
Correct.
Or
Yeah, I think.
zones.
Yeah, so I think that it would be kind of a two-step process. Paper step to see what the NPDS permit looks like. Can we make the studies that show that we can meet the requirements or increase those requirements? And then if we can't, what are those requirements that we're going to be given? And then we back into that solution based on mixing zones or however we want to do that. But at least we'll know what those requirements are to back into that with any type of process.
We have to be careful when we ask them, though, because when we asked them before, they were willing to give us more lenient limits because we told them we were only going to discharge a few months out of the year. But now, if we're gonna go back to discharging 24/7, then that's gonna be a whole different ballgame.
Well, and that's what this firm will look at, that they should be looking at that too and making arguments for us and figuring out what maybe that best solution is. Okay, we can push them this far, but you got to do this to make sure that we can get this type thing.
I'd like to make a motion on this thing, if I may. Because
I'd like to discuss it.
I think
I'm
Nan's
sure,
still-
I'm not, what the motion is to table it to the Water Quality Committee and let them work with staff to come back to a recommendation to the board. That'll keep us from, we've already got about a half hour into this, and we've got a lot of thoughts. I think Kevin's idea is supported by the board. Everybody here, it seems to be. In fact, I wanted to applaud him when he started talking about this, because this has been a long-term fight. I was very happy to see this thing go away. So,
Not gone
but
yet.
we could save the board some time tonight, because we all have thoughts on how it could go. And the committee is both knowledgeable and skilled. And
far more
Kevin
than I.
and Jim can work with them, and then come back to the board with something, a proposal that we could act on.
Will you call for the motion? I'll make it.
Okay.
I might still have some thoughts
To
here.
say-
Dan wants to talk some more first.
Sorry. I think this would just bring, if this happens, it would just bring our NPDES permit into compliance, and then we'd have to decide, or do we want to renew that? So this would just bring it into compliance. But we still have mechanical issues I think we need to address at the plant.
Correct.
We have leaky ponds, and
This would not.
it's not the end-all, be-all.
Right. No, but so this would kind of take care, maybe renew that NPDES permit, but there still would be, and Jim was very clear about this with myself too, there's still upgrades and stuff that
There's
need to
still
go
things that
on
need to be
within
done.
the treatment plant.
So we would satisfy both, I think. We'd show the board that we're willing to do some engineering, and then
Correct.
this could buy us some time.
Right.
At least we'd be in compliance.
We would be in compliance
Yeah.
and
because part of the RFP was this chunk, I don't see any reason to put it in committee. I think we could act on it tonight.
I think so too.
That's
You all in
Well, would
agreement?
somebody make a
You
motion?
smart people?
I've got one more question. Now, I thought Stan Tech's comments were worked into this RP that's out right now. They
No,
oh, they weren't. Oh, they came afterwards. Huh?
no, but the regional board's comments were
Okay, I'm sorry.
regarding the mixing zone.
Right.
And then George made sure it included the renewal permit aspect.
Okay, I see. Okay, I had the understanding that Stan.
Entire Receiving on our study,
Right.
Right.
but it goes forward too quickly.
Okay, I'm with you now. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I make a motion that we amend this action may be taken processed water recycle project to pull the RFP existing and draft a new one that states exactly what you explained to us and send it out to that community and see if we get any bites.
Okay.
I second.
You want public input? Or what?
We're supposed to technically let them respond to every.
Oh, no. Any public input? I was going to say it.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And as I've mentioned before, this is one of the areas that I've researched as I've traveled about, and especially to find that two things, one of which I had discussed with Cliff before. Some places have just flat out given up on aluminum altogether. Aluminum sulfate is out. You go to ferrous sulfate. Yes, it's a problem with the salts and barnacles inside your tank, but you put a bitumistic liner in there, and you can survive this way and still treat the water. You get a great flocculant. When you filter it out, you don't have any aluminum. Okay. So we've been against that change here for numerous reasons, and the original 5 years it took to get to the process we have now, which does work. It's just that it includes the aluminum. Okay. This is not the only water facility that is looking at satisfying the absence of the NPDES permit and looking at changing the way they do things. What Bill has researched in the way of ponds is fairly common now as an alternative and even a harvestable filtrate. So there are ways to look at something that is much less costly than the 15 to 18 million or whatever it is that we're looking at and should be looked at. And it's not that far from where AECOM, by the way, AECOM is very well respected. For this kind of work, they are. but it's only a few blocks away where they have a competitor who often provides information to water companies looking at making these changes for a lot less money with different kinds of criteria. So yes, what they proposed would work. It's not the only alternative. And when you think about it being the people's money that you're going to spend, the people deserve you to concern yourself with some of the other alternatives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward.
Here.
Does anybody else from the public want to make a comment? We'll go back to the board then. We've got a motion with a second, and you want to comment on it anymore? Or make an amendment to the motion?
Do we have a timeline for this, Kevin, by any chance?
How quick do you think you can get it back?
ASAP.
If wells just stay up there, Jim.
I was just wondering how quickly we can
Get
change this
responses back.
RFP and get it
Pull
out.
one and issue another one.
Yeah, pull the one and.
Well, the first thing I want to do tomorrow morning is basically notify everybody that we've rescinded that by board action. I guess that could be the right word.
If we vote on it here.
I'm waiting for that. Getting a similar RFP from Stantec that I can use as a boilerplate, take me, I can have it out next week.
Yay.
Okay.
That's what we want to
We
hear.
might hold you to that.
I also want to say thanks for all the work you've put in on this. I know you've spent a lot of time on it, and appreciate it.
What are you with? Huh? Waterworks engineer. Waterworks engineer. So-
Next time.
Next subject.
Next
Okay.
subject. Oh, all right.
Are we ready to vote?
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Do we have any more comments, or anybody want to talk to the question or the vote?
Move the question?
I'm ready to say aye.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
And do
Boy,
we
that-
also,
That was great
President-
move there, Kevin. Thank you very much.
President Kellogg, do we also need to make a motion to table the bond alternative?
On our,
That's what's on our agenda?
okay, yes, please. Either that or cancel it, but yeah, make a motion to table.
Well, I thought that was part of my motion that I made.
Would
Was to pull the existing RFP.
That was the one for the receiving
Table.
water. This
I
is the
said
RFP for,
Yeah, I said to
For the
table the
pond
process
alternative.
water recycle, pull the RFP.
Okay, it was in your motion.
And,
Yeah, it was.
Okay, he motioned to table.
okay, I understood the
Okay.
receiving water RFP to rescind. I didn't hear the other one.
so
Okay,
it'll continue to be unfinished business until we decide whether to dump it or not.
Correct.
okay.
Thank
you
you,
for that
gentlemen.
clarification.
Wow. Wow.
I realize board recess is way down the line, but I'd like to call one. We've been going at it for an hour and a half, so we'll take a small break and then come back.
I'll second that. We want to vote on that?
Adjourned.
I'm okay with it.
We're on new business, number 7, A, Reservoir B replacement project, planning and design, Kevin Phillips, Jim Passanini, C. Consider award of a professional service contract to Waterworks Engineers for planning and design of Reservoir B replacement project, the amount to not to exceed $492,013. Action may be taken, and Sam is here from, I'll go back there. From Waterworks Engineers. So he'll be able to represent and answer questions. So, since Kevin, you're on,
I'm actually going to turn it over to Jim. He did all of the vetting of the RFPs. He sent out the RFP. He's done all the backgrounds on all these firms that submitted RFP or proposals. So I'll turn it over to Jim.
I really don't want to be redundant and restate the staff report. I thought it was very straightforward. The selection committee believes that Waterworks is the best fit for the district. They're all competent, highly credible consultants, but Waterworks was the best fit in our recommendation.
Well, I thank you, Jim, for this work and also for getting this turned around so quickly.
So if I may be heard, Mr. President, just briefly, if you're inclined to accept staff's recommendation, you're not accepting the lowest bidder. That we looked at that. That's acceptable if the board is so inclined. legally, you are required to accept the lowest responsible bidder when you're using the proceeds of bonds or a limited assessment to fund the project. You're not doing that in this case. So legally, you don't have to accept the lowest responsible bidder. You are, however, using state revolving fund monies for this project. And we looked at that as well. Kevin took the lead on that. And Exhibit C, Section 7, actually allows you to, it just states you shall adhere to laws applicable to your district in the use of state revolving fund monies. And as I already said, we're compliant with the laws that apply to PID. So if you're inclined to accept the staff recommendation to not accept the lowest responsible bidder, that's okay in this particular instance.
We don't need to make it part of a motion or anything.
That's why I just made that statement. For the record, it'll be in the minutes.
Okay.
Could I ask some questions?
Yes, of course.
Has Sam seen the reservoir, the B reservoir?
Yes, sir.
What kind of condition is it in?
We did perform a condition assessment. I think there have been some condition assessments performed in recent years that we've been relying on. We've just walked and visually observed it, so I don't think I have the information to give a condition assessment of the existing reservoir.
Yeah, I was curious if you had any idea if we didn't do anything, what's the life of it? Jim wants to answer that.
Some of your Harper and Associates did a condition assessment fairly recently, 2 years ago.
I think we decided at our last board meeting, wasn't it, that we needed to plan to get it done because its life expectancy had it and would be exhausted by about the time we actually got the unit replaced.
Right.
And even if if it exceeded life expectancy or had more than that, it was a water quality issue because it's basically an open reservoir. Even though it has a cover on it, it's not really by today's standards or code fit to hold drinking water.
Okay.
It's grandfathered
I
in.
did want to mention about the existing reservoir. There's two parts to the condition of the reservoir. The cover and is a liner, and the cover and liner are, not necessarily have to be both used. You could use the liner and change the cover. And one of the things we're suggesting that we examine in the conceptual design phase of the project is to look at some alternatives that would continue to use the existing reservoir and existing liner and change the cover, potentially even extending the height of the reservoir with a concrete wall around the reservoir and a new cover, depending on how much volume is needed. So the first step in our approach to this project is to really take a hard look at how much volume is really required, and then what is the most effective, cost-effective way to achieve that volume. And that could include using some portion of the existing reservoir, whether it's the earth embankment, the liner, not likely to be the cover because of some of the concerns about the cover. But I think if the question is there any remaining use in the investment that district's made in that existing reservoir, our answer would be there could be, and that's part of what we want to investigate in the first phase of the project, which is the conceptual engineering assessment.
You're answering my concerns. The liner and the top were replaced at the same time. That was when I was on the board, I think, for 2 years.
Right, but exposed to different.
Yeah, the top of it is going to have sunlight and
ultraviolet
ultraviolet rays.
sun and the vandalism and so forth.
No, if that's your process, I have no problem with this.
Sammy, could you tell us a little bit about your team you're putting together for this project, just briefly?
So it's waterworks engineers, and then we are working with a company called Vertical Sciences, which is a geotechnical engineering company. We've been doing work with this individual, Jim Bianchin, at Vertical Sciences for more than a decade on tank projects throughout Northern California. So with myself, I'm here. I'm a principal in the firm, but I'll also be here talking to you about the project as we execute the project. I'll be technically involved in the job. I'm not the guy who's here to sell you on the firm and then go off and sell the next one. And then Steve Hooper is going to be a project engineer working with me. He's an experienced tank designer. And then Jim Bianchin is the geotechnical engineer. And that's really the core team of people who are working on it. We have structural engineers Jeremy Kellogg is our structural engineer. He actually has already sort of looked at some of the concepts that we've been talking about the structure to make sure that what we were proposing was a legitimate option in terms of extending the Highlight Reservoir. And then for the minor amount of electrical that might be involved, we have electrical engineers. And also we work on that. You also work for waterworks. So it's really all waterworks engineers folks other than Mr. Nelson, who's a geotechnical engineer.
Okay. So a pretty full.
But you'll be seeing a lot of me.
Okay, a full commitment, in other words, to the project.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
We're
you.
excited about the project.
Okay.
Excited to-
Very good.
Is the board ready for a motion?
Well,
Or the public to, what, Cliff?
a fee for services that is not to exceed the figure, assuming that a single alternative is selected. Could you explain that comment a little bit there?
We had to make some assumptions in our fee proposal about what the project would end up being after this conceptual design phase is completed. And so we made some assumptions about where the project would head, that it would be on the existing reservoir site, that it would involve a certain amount of geotechnical exploration, a certain amount of surveying and so forth, and delineated those so that we're clear on what we priced. We're confident that that is the most likely direction the project is headed, and that the fee will not exceed that if the project stays in the bounds that we perceive it will stay within. If we go and get into the project and we get to the conceptual design phase, and we're here discussing alternatives, and some of those alternatives involve additional engineering costs or additional, especially environmental permitting or geotechnical investigation costs, those costs will be discussed with those alternatives as part of the negative, let's say, of those alternatives. We would say, well, here's this alternative that we could take, but that alternative, it might save you this much money on the construction end, but it's going to cost you this much money on the engineering end. Is that extra cost now, offset by the saving later? So we had to define what the engineering was now, just so that we're all operating from the same set of assumptions. If the project sort of takes a wild turn, we don't want to have to say, later say, we didn't expect that wild turn. We wanted to define that now.
Well, I know we have a habit of changing course here, I've noticed. But however, having
things are
said
done.
that, I want to make sure that that comment, that statement there would bother me a little bit unless I'm quite confident that you're pretty clear on what the project entails, and as long as we don't decide we want to change the project, that we can hold you to that amount that we're going to approve possibly. So, I wouldn't want to approve that and then find out we get into it and you say, well, geez, I didn't know about that. That's going to be a little more,
Yeah, there's a lot of detail to this, but we, in general, have anticipated everything we could anticipate for a tank project on that tank site.
Okay.
And that, whether we're extending the wall to the existing tank or building a new steel tank, those alternatives, we're well within that. What we're trying to identify is if we are involving off-site work, other parts of the project that are not anticipated, that we are clear about that from the beginning and would be clear about that in any kind of an alternatives
Good.
analysis.
Thank you.
As part of the,
Thank you. Jim, you concur that they have a pretty good understanding of what the project entails?
Yeah, let me explain it this way, and correct me. They plan on doing as many significant amount of workshops prior to getting to preliminary design, when they actually focused on a specific project for design. So a lot of workshops to bring their designs to you guys, bring in the public, explain the alternatives, and begin to focus. And I'm not sure how many workshops you want to give them a number, whether it's 3 or 4, but that's maybe not important right now, but enough workshops to focus on an alternative. Is that?
Yeah, no, I just want to be clear that if you know the knowledge of what needs to be done up there, you're confident that they understand the project so that the cost that they've
Yes.
given us here is accurate so that we don't stray from that unless we decide we want to change the project.
It's corroborated by how close the other estimates really are.
Okay.
We did this with ACOM. They came back with several things and the board approved. I didn't always vote for it, but they came back with added expenses. So We know the process, or should know it, right, Sam?
So,
Sounds like you're up front with what you're doing, so.
As long as he knows this includes all 3 tanks. Yeah.
Very good.
so I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, just one.
I'd like to make a motion. I move to award a professional services contract to Waterworks Engineers LLC for planning and design of the Reservoir B replacement project in the amount not to exceed $492,013.
Second.
Any further discussion, anything from the public? Nobody seems to want to make us on board. Any more discussion? Anybody call for the question?
I'll move the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, all unanimous.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and for the trust you're putting on us for the project. We'll serve you well.
We look forward to working
Thanks,
with
Sam.
you.
Okay, Cliff, this one's yours, baby. The next one is Policies and Procedures Manual states in 219B, and go ahead and present it.
Okay, so I've got a number of them here. The first one is Chapter 2 of the Policies and Procedures Manual states in 2.19B, the president of the board may form ad hoc committees composed of board members for such purposes as they deem appropriate. An ad hoc committee shall only be comprised of less than a quorum of directors, will be of limited duration, and will have no continuing jurisdiction. Now the problem with it. It's time-consuming and redundant to create additional committees to address issues that are best discussed and acted upon in the appropriate standing committee. For example, an ad hoc committee to make changes to the Policy and Procedures Manual should be handled in the Administration Standing Committee, not in an ad hoc committee. So, the action requested is, I would like to change Chapter 2, 2.19B of the Policies and Procedures Manual to read, the President of the Board may form ad hoc committees composed of board members for such purposes as they deem appropriate, except that ad hoc committees shall not be created to address issues that would normally be addressed in the appropriate standing committee. An ad hoc committee shall only be comprised of less than a quorum of directors, will be of limited duration, and will have no continuing jurisdiction.
May I comment?
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
The only reason it doesn't, to me, Mark, which largely I go along with it, but the only reason I'm not sure I totally agree is that frequently we choose an ad hoc committee, like something I said here earlier. If we were to get a committee in regards to the study of chemicals in whatever, we don't probably have a standing committee right now that would feature 2 of the people who are the most knowledgeable, and so it'd be nice to set up something that was appropriate for the best people in here. For instance, last week at a senior center board meeting, we created 2 ad hoc committees. Both of them were totally appropriate because of the people that we chose for that position. There was one that had an HR portion to it. We have 2 people that are retired from positions like that, and we said, we need you 2 for this committee. We had another decision that was in regards to a financial thing. We have 2 people on our board that are retired financial whatever, I can't remember their things, but that's what they dealt with all their life before they retired. And so we said, okay, you 2, can you please be on this committee because you are the most appropriate for this. And so that's the only reason, because it doesn't matter that much, except sometimes maybe what we can try to do is always use the closest standing committee as often as possible that would be appropriate. But I hate to make it so that you can't use. You can't choose the best for the...
My thought process on that, Dan, is...
I think I understand it, and I'm not totally adverse to it.
But to address your issue there, your concern, if we do our due diligence in setting up the standing committees with the appropriate board individuals in that area, then when we have a need for something in that area, that appropriate standing committee should be able to address that. So if we were to set up a committee, which we have the standing committee on the treatment plant, okay? It would not be appropriate to set up a ad hoc committee for Bill and I to discuss aluminum sulfate
Right, correct.
versus ferric chloride and come back to the board with an appropriate choice when these two individuals who are knowledgeable in both of those
Yeah.
are already there. That's my intention, so that we don't create these needless committees that circumvent what the standing committee could do.
And or else maybe we could change the verbiage on your requested motion to say, I hate being generic, but something simple like, as often as possible try to achieve using existing standing committees, or something like that. Because I still think that I could see times when standing committees may not be the best choice from our board.
Well, the word appropriate standing committee could be used for that, and that's part of my
But that's
change.
what I'm saying, if you don't have
So if it's
one.
not appropriate, then we can create an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
If we as a board decide that that's not appropriate, then we can vote to create an ad hoc committee for that specific instance. But it keeps us from creating an ad hoc committee when we need to actually assign it to a standing committee that we have. I'm just trying to clean it up, make it easier for us to run this board so that we can get out of here on time.
I'd like to explain, because I appointed all the committees, and then add for this ad hoc committee, knowing that normally it probably would go to the administration. But the problem that I felt was just very simple. I have the history of knowing the bylaws and how they were changed, and what motivated the changes, and what I felt would come back. Now, you as a board didn't buy all the ideas that Dan and I came up to on the committee, but you did listen, and we got things changed. Now, the reason for that and not putting it to the administration committee is Cliff's been here about a year. Dan's had the experience, like he was just talking about, with another board, setting up ad hoc committees and going it. And I've always found it was strange that the president of the board does this. And I've sat in board meetings where the president chose two of his buddies to do it and probably felt like Cliff is on this one. But that's why we set it up. I think we'll have maybe one or two more meetings. It all got disrupted when George quit, and we had all these other things to worry about, so we just sort of shoved it off. But there is still about a half of the bylaws to go through, and we can talk about them and bring it back to the board. And I always like the bylaws to have some time in them for the individual board members can sit here and say, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? And it doesn't come at you as a quick thing. Now, you've had Cliff's ideas on the bylaws for about a week, I think. So that's pretty good timing, actually, for it to be considered. But that's why I formed the ad hoc committee to modify the bylaws, because I felt I got the two most experienced board members that could work on it, and then you guys have the final say anyhow. And then the committee's going to go away. And then anything in the future will probably go to the administration committee. We'll have done the legwork on going over these rules one at a time and so forth, because it takes time. Staff has their chance to make inputs on it. I can't say that George agreed with everything we did, but this is part of just running the district. So that's my explanation. Now, if you want to ask me questions about it, I'll be glad to answer them.
Well, I don't mind going, you've got this ad hoc committee to review the policies and procedures manual, fine, by all means, finish it out. But going forward, I think that for the sake of cleaning this board up and getting things streamlined, I think that this is entirely appropriate. And in the future, the admin committee, the standing committee, could easily deal with those. If you're tasking us as a president to deal with the union and all of the employees and all of that, that's certainly far more complex than in amending the policies and procedures manual, so.
The reason you two were, that I chose you two is you're both self-employed. You both have had employees that you've had to hire and fire. You have gone through the experience with your businesses in this. You had to meet payroll and so forth. That's why you need to be the union rep and for the board. And so that's why I put you two together on those two most powerful committees in the board that have influence over, should have more influence over everything. But a key to these committees working, it has to be reported back to the board after each committee meeting, even though you may not have much to say, or we just talked about it. But I've been in meetings where Ken Hunt would come back and I'd ask him about the finance committee, and I know they talked about more than he reported, and I asked him more. Instead, I got a wise comment back saying that it's none of your business.
But Ken doesn't work here anymore.
No, I know. That explains why I'm so on this thing about having the committees being open, and that's what I try to do with all the committees that I'm on.
And I think we're going to address that in my next changes here, and that's going to get into
The
reports.
idea I like about this is it kind of reduces redundancy, Bill. You know, we've only been here a short period of time, but I tell you, all these committees that we're going to, and it takes up a lot of time.
It does.
And if we can consolidate,
That won't change anything.
No, I'm not saying I'm.
Right.
You know, I'm committed. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's just that if we can consolidate and stick to the standing committees and only kind of do ad hoc committees sparingly, I'm all for that.
And
Well,
don't
in
we
the
all,
past, they have been used sparingly, maybe one or two a year at the most, and they're short-lived.
Nothing precludes, I'm sorry, Ann, go ahead.
don't we always have the option to suspend the rules?
That's just exactly what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Yes, a majority board vote can override that and say, we need an ad hoc committee for this particular issue, and if the board unanimously agrees, then, or if the majority agrees, then that ad hoc committee is created.
Okay, you guys are very definitely a different board.
Yeah.
I've been experienced with for years here, so there was no kind of effort to do that in the past.
Like I said, that was yesterday, Bill.
Yes, I know.
We're moving forward.
Well,
Yeah.
That's what this
a
is
lot
all
of
about.
my
I still think it could
living
be
in
softened.
yesterday. Huh?
Dan, you can create an ad hoc committee anytime you can convince 3 board members that it's appropriate.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. And in the meantime, we don't waste a lot of time on it. We say send that to the admin committee, send it to the water treatment plant committee, send it to the finance committee.
See, again, it
tried to do that
doesn't,
tonight,
it
you guys
doesn't,
would-
I think you understand, it doesn't alter the number of committees or the number of
No.
decisions.
I agree.
Yeah,
I understand.
because there's still the same thing,
Yes.
it'd just be a different committee.
It's a lot
that's all.
easier to
Yeah.
keep track of, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping to
So we have a
avoid
motion?
more, not less.
Oh, you want to talk about it, Ward?
Well, are we,
I'll make a motion here that we. Let's see. How do I word this?
Approve the amendment?
Excuse me. Oh, is it right there?
Well, I mean, just you're going to approve amending the policy procedure manual?
Yes. Approve amending.
219B.
Yeah, Chapter 2 of the
119.
Policies Procedures Manual states. Oh, excuse me.
2.19, just
So
amending it.
you can just say you want to amend it
119B
as stated.
Stated.
As stated.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Any public input?
Still think it's too harsh, but okay, I can vote against it. I just don't
He
ever
just
like
takes notes.
shall nots, because that just really stops things dead in the tracks.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Nobody else seemingly wants to talk anymore. So anybody asks the question, and we'll vote on it.
I'll move the question.
All the question does is stop debate and move it to a vote. I don't know who invented the word,
Yeah.
but anyway.
You don't need to use it if you
we're
don't.
going to get into that in a minute,
I
too.
know, that's why I'm saying it.
It's kind of a silly, unnecessary.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One no, please.
What? No. No. You didn't ask for no.
So I have, is it
3 to 2.
Okay, so
Director Kella, President Kella, and Director Winston
No.
Oh.
says no?
Yeah.
Right.
so 3-2.
Too harsh.
Okay,
accept
Cliff, you got the next one?
Okay. Special meetings. Chapter 4 of the Policies and Procedures Manual states in 4.1B, any meeting of the board that is held in addition to regular meetings All special meetings shall be called by the board president or by a majority of the directors in conformance with the Brown Act. The stated guidelines preclude the district manager from calling a special meeting without the approval of the board president. This transfers all power to the president of the board and unfairly limits the ability of staff and employees of PID from bringing important items that require urgent attention to the board in a timely manner. Action requested: change Chapter 4, 4.1b of the Policies and Procedures Manual to read: any meeting of the board that is held in addition to regular meetings, all special meetings shall be called by the board president, the district manager or acting district manager, or by a majority of the directors in conformance with the Brown Act. Comment?
I'm just waiting for somebody to comment. That's all.
This one I don't have a problem with.
Neither do I.
The only one.
I don't have a problem with it either.
Mark, do you have any problem with it?
I'm good with it.
Okay, can we have Ward wants to talk about this.
Yes, before you change this, I'd like to know the rationale for the original language, and maybe that's a question for legal.
Yeah, it's similar to what's stated in the Brown Act currently, although I will tell you that the proposed change is more consistent with what past practice has been. Mm-hmm. I can recall a number of instances where, George effectively called a special meeting on a topic that he felt was important and needed the attention of the board. So I don't have any legal issue with it, but I just think the original language was more closely aligned with what the statute says.
Actually, most of the special meetings were called by George. So,
I think it shows our trust in the district manager, so I like it.
well, will somebody please make a motion?
We've got somebody from the
Lauren
public
wants to
who
talk.
wants to keep it.
Okay, Lauren.
Good afternoon, Lauren Harvey. I'm really amazed in how smoothly this whole thing, you guys are all getting along, everybody, and it's working, looks really good from out where I'm sitting. But one thing I'd just like to say about all this is we have an amazing board right now. You folks got a ton of experience. It's really swinging well. But I just wish if you're going to make some changes, please think about the future boards. They might be some dumb guys that don't know what you folks know. And so let's remember that you guys are here now and you might be here for 15 years, 20 years, who knows? I don't know, 50 years, who knows?
Not that long, I can promise you.
You're going to be replaced, and we might not get the expertise that you folks got right now. So let's not change. I mean, it all sounds wonderful to me. We got great people here that got lots of knowledge, and you guys work well together. But by golly, someday there's going to be a different five up there. So let's keep that in mind while we're changing.
The onus is on you. Don't vote for the dumb ones.
Well, actually, Ken Hunt slipped by me, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Not good, not good.
Thank you.
You're not putting that in the newspaper. Okay. We still need to take action on this thing, so I need a motion or something.
So I'll make a motion to amend the Policy Procedure Manual, Section 4.1B, special meeting as stated.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Ann? No? Any call for the question again, Ann?
You
The question.
don't
Thank
need to
you.
say that.
All in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passage unanimous. Next one, Cliff.
Okay, so, agenda preparation. Chapter 4 of the Policies and Procedures Manual states in 4.3C, agenda items submitted by district staff on the public must have the general district manager and board president's approval prior to being placed on the agenda. The public may submit a request to the general district manager or directly to the board for future agenda items. In the manager's absence, the manager's designated representative may approve items for the agenda with consent of the board president. Now, here's the problem I have with that. Currently, any board member, including the board president, can bring an agenda item to the board for discussion and possible action. However, an agenda item created by the district manager cannot be put on the board meeting agenda unless it is approved by the board president. This does not allow the district's employees or district manager to bring items of importance to the board's attention unless the president of the board approves in advance. This gives the board president the power to dismiss any issues that he or she, I said she, does not want to discuss regarding PID staff or its employees. The district manager should be able to bring an agenda item for information or action from his or her staff and employees without fear of denial from the president of the board. So the action requested, I would like to change that section to read, agenda items submitted by district staff or the public, excluding the district manager, must have the district manager and board president's approval prior to being placed on the agenda. The public may submit a request to the general district manager or directly to the board or for future agenda items. In the manager's absence, the manager's designated representative may approve items for the agenda with consent of the board president. So basically what I'm saying is that the district manager, including the interim district manager, is our counterpart. That's who we communicate with back and forth. And it's an unfair balance if only the board or the board's president has the right to deny that individual the opportunity to bring an agenda item to our attention. I think it's an unfair balance of power, and for it to be equaled out, I think that our counterpart has to have that ability as well as we do.
I don't know. Kevin, you want to comment on this?
I think it's a good change. I do think that there should be parity within the district manager to be able to bring agenda items to the board for their consideration. I think that's kind of what you hire that person for. In a way.
Right, and I mean, we certainly are going to vote on it. If we don't like what he has to say, it'll get voted down. But he at least needs to have the opportunity to bring something that's of importance to his side to us to be reviewed.
Let's see, I'm not aware of the way we do it, have been doing it, being a problem. That's why I asked for Kevin to comment.
Well,
The only comment that I would have on this is we've got to remember, and this is nothing against management, but we've got to remember that we are the elected representatives of the people. And even though we, in turn, elect the district manager, I think our contact with the public is always so important that we are a team, we can trust each other. Why would we say that we can't be a part of the decision making of things that go on there? That's part of the reason that Bill and I in policies and procedures and so on wanted to get in there that the whole agenda is set by the president and the manager, and so that it's a dual responsibility. And if you take that away and the manager can just stick on whatever he likes, even though 9,990 times out of 10,000 is there ever going to be a change? But in case there is something that's potentially destructive, we represent the people. That is our tiny bit of leverage, if I might say that. Again, it's not anything against the manager, but this is our control of our meeting, and we lose that if we have that. Do I detect anybody doing anything? I don't think any one of us would ever pull something that the manager seriously wanted on there. And if we did, we have a wrong president.
I thought about this quite extensively when you changed it.
In the beginning.
Yes, in the beginning. And I have to say that I thought about, there would be items that I would never know about that were very important that the district managers would want to bring forward.
Do you think that would ever happen?
I don't know, but I'm just saying I definitely thought that scenario could happen. And so it concerned me greatly, and I think I voted against this when it first go around. So, so I'm just.
I still think that
there.
we are we the people. We represent them, and I think it's important that we have still a degree of control, and we lose that control. Could I ever anticipate it happening? Gosh, people on my other boards that I'm on bring forward stuff, and we put all kinds of stuff on it. And I've never, on any board that I've ever been on, stopped anything. But
I'm not saying it would ever happen here.
We as the board have the power to get rid of the district manager if we don't like the job that he's doing.
because I'm not casting any aspersion on him.
No,
I just think that
I'm
we're
just
losing
saying,
our control.
We're not losing control, Dan.
Yeah.
We still have the final say. Number one, if the current district manager were to put items on the agenda that were frivolous, waste of time, or were of benefit to him or his crew only, we would catch on to that pretty quick. And we would say, we need to be taking a look at our district manager. So if we trust that he is going to do a good job for us, then we got to trust that when he brings something to the agenda that it's noteworthy and that we need to look at it. We still have the final say. We can vote it up or we can vote it down.
Yeah.
But I think it's only fair, like Mark said, that we're be appraised of things that come up that might otherwise not be said.
Yeah, I agree. If none of the five of us are privy to everything that the district manager, we can't know all the ins and outs day to day. Ours is a big overview of governance, really with a lot of fiscal majority is fiscal responsibility. So I have no problem with that position, putting something on the agenda.
I think there's a big misconception here. We had a problem in the past with absolute control on the manager's side.
And that's where I'm coming from.
I put items
we never
on every
know.
once in a while, but most of it's there.
But he had a board
But we'll take tonight's agenda.
No, he doesn't.
Kevin brought back his debt management thing. Kevin put that on the agenda. He didn't ask me anything, and I didn't expect him to ask me anything. That was important to him, and it should be on the agenda. There was no attempt by me to tell Kevin, no, I don't think I've told you no on anything to put on the agenda.
You haven't, but I think what the article states, though, is if you didn't want it on there, you could say no.
You can say no.
That's what
You have the power.
I think that's what the article says. I'm not saying you
You have the
did.
power as the president to say, Kevin, you made me mad yesterday. I'm not going to let you put that on the agenda. And he can't. And that's not right.
Yeah,
That
I
needs to
agree.
be fixed.
That's not right.
Nobody here, including you, should have the power to do that. It's an equal balance. We have to work together as a team. We want to try and work together as a team. If we want him to respect us, we have to respect him. And if he has something that he thinks needs to be an agenda item, even if you disagree with it, there might be 4 board members who don't. But it's not up to you to say to the rest of us that we can't review it because you denied him the opportunity. Or if I'm the president a year from now and I want to do that, I don't have the right to do that either. Maybe all 4 of you are in agreement on something and I'm not.
I can't tell you the exact thing. I can't remember, but I asked Kevin to put something on the agenda, and it didn't appear. Okay? So it's a give and take right now. I don't think, at least I'm not the kind of person that's going to do what you're talking about. It's like, and as a president of the board, I don't have the power to say, no, you can't put this on the agenda.
Well, but it's worded that way.
It's
Bill.
worded that way here.
It's in the policy right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and that's what we're trying to remove or change.
Yeah. I mean, and so it shouldn't be a big deal if we fix it then, because it says currently
It's not an
that
issue.
he cannot bring an item to the board's attention on the agenda for action, or for that matter, it doesn't say action only, it just says you cannot agendize anything without
Okay,
your
but-
approval.
But basically, it's not, he's putting on whatever he pretty much feels about it, and there's some things I feel about it, and it doesn't get on the agenda because of his lack of action. So, all right, if you want to do this, okay, but I'm trying to explain to you what the practical thing is, and what the reason we went it this way was we had a situation, and again, it's not this board, it was the old board, where we had a rubber stamp. So, okay, so let's have a motion on this before we can get on to something else. You want us to talk to it, Warren? Okay.
Yes, so back to the original question, what was the rationale for the language as it exists, which should be considered before you want to change it? However, like Dan has said, we've served on a lot of different kinds of boards. You need a good reason based on what has gone wrong before you change something. Director Kellogg's point is, what we've been doing does work. It's not a problem between the board and management or management and the board, except the way he cited certain board members who had an issue. So why change something that does work?
Ward, we just,
The original rationale to write it the way it was written, and it has worked.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we did the original, we're changing it back to the original language.
Yes, thank you. That's the way it was. It got changed because certain individuals didn't like how certain individuals were performing, and there was a power play, and that needs to go away. It needs to go back to what it was. It needs to go back to what made sense and what is the fair and reasonable thing to do, and then we can move on. Because yesterday is not coming back. We got to deal with tomorrow.
Lauren Harvey, I'm in favor of this one. I think most common people are. So let's get a vote and move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Just waiting for a motion.
Make a motion.
Okay, let's see, where are we?
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to, we'll see, what page are we on? 78, right?
So 4.3C.
Oh, okay.
No, for 1B, right?
C. No.
4.3C, agenda preparation.
Okay, make a motion to amend Procedures and Policies Manual, Chapter 4, 4.3C, to read,
You can
As
just
stated.
say, as presented, yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
Have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yep, no.
Same. 3-2.
Next one, Cliff.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm getting lost here.
This has to do with agenda priorities. Chapter 4 of the Policies and Procedures Manual is lacking a statement of order for unfinished business and new business. And by the way, it needs to be called unfinished, not old business.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
just shorter to print.
Okay. Currently, there is no stated order in Chapter 4, Section 4.3, Agenda Preparation. Unfinished business at times is not addressed first, and new business is at times not listed by importance but by date received for addition to the board meeting. Action requested. Add to Chapter 4, 4.3E, unfinished business shall be addressed before new business unless preempted by a motion and a majority vote of the board. Add to Chapter 4, 4.3F, agenda items shall be listed on the agenda in order of importance. Pretty self-explanatory.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Order of importance depends on who you are. So,
That's my huge objection.
Yeah, me too.
No.
Go ahead.
so what? I'm just trying to help clarify what you intend, and maybe we can add a
The Policies
sentence.
and Procedures Manual states that the secretary, the district manager, and the president, I believe, all get together in assembling the agenda, correct? If the three of them can't figure out the order of importance, we got a problem.
So then maybe order of importance as determined by the board secretary, district manager, and board president.
There you are.
Something like that.
That I might agree with.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's better.
So we can amend it? Can you remember
just
what
add-
you just said there?
To agenda items shall be listed on the agenda in order of importance as determined by the board secretary, district manager, and board president.
And then,
Okay with that, Dan?
yeah,
ahead.
that works. However, I don't like E because, again, you're mandating. I don't like that shall and shall not. You guys seem to love it, but I've been around government and business too much because
been around this guy too
that
long.
kills you. That just cuts you off at the
That's-
knees at
that's-
everything because
It's gotta have some teeth,
for instance, and virtually all the time the agenda's here for years. It's unfinished business, which I don't have a problem with that, and then new business. However, there are times when the manager, president, secretary are all arranging the schedule. If you know you have something that is of more import for that night, for instance, if we had somebody important and they had to be somewhere at such and such a time, when you say shall, that person has to wait for another hour and a half while you get down to it. Well, he's been postponed.
Not necessarily.
Because we have
Not necessarily. Again,
But you see, they should be able to give them the ability to shift that, knowing what's happening that night at that meeting, that there's somebody here that needs to address something early
what
on.
typically happens
Why wait
now-
for the time to take a board to say, no, do we have a motion? Do we, motion and question and answer? And why are we run? When it can just be done by them because they know.
typically now what happens is, if you submit an item at the last minute, yours probably goes down at the end of the calendar. And it may be of utmost importance. It may preempt everything else. All I'm saying is,
How often does
Let's-
that happen? Because
How-
you
how
guys
is it
work on
assembled now?
it can't get on the
is
agenda.
it assembled, Georgiana can answer this one, is it assembled by when the items come in from board members for,
It depends if I have, how much of the agenda I have done, like if I have links already, it's a lot of work and extra time to have to review the whole thing. So then it would go to the end, but before that even starts, I always, talk to the
Prioritize.
manager, and if we have consultants here, and we know that they're traveling,
Okay.
we'll place them first as new business, or we know there's
staff.
gonna be a public here, staff,
excellent. So what you just said is, correct me if I'm wrong, you just said that you're doing what I'm saying we ought to put in our policies manual that it doesn't state we should be doing.
No, you're saying it has to be done first. And
No.
it's nice to give them the
I'm-
leverage.
I'm saying we should be doing that, and we need to put it in our policy manual. Georgiana says we're already doing that, and I'm saying, great, let's document it then.
Well, what's happening is that.
No, you don't
like
understand.
Georgiana and so forth. Well, we had 2 meetings on Kevin's contract where
I don't
we
know why
had
you
things
guys
come in
love
at
shall
4:30
not
in the
so much.
afternoon. And yet that was the most important thing on the agenda that night. So you can change it. The president can change it. Kevin can
But
tell me to change it.
but you can't if you say shall not.
Well,
I
we can
know.
change it in the
They
meeting,
should not
though.
have any shall not.
Well, I
in
think
it.
this is the appropriate
The-
place to change the agenda.
The thing
not
has
last
to be
minute from now.
flexible.
Okay.
It's this board.
You guys need to be in
isn't-
charge sometime. You see.
You like
Okay.
to think you're in control of
Here.
everything, but it has to be flexible.
How about
Has to
should?
be flexible.
How about should?
Hey, how many
How
times
about,
have I said shall
how about
not?
agenda
Just cuts everybody
items
off
should
the
be
meeting.
listed on the agenda in order of importance as
Okay,
determined by the
should.
board,
See, because-
secretary, district manager,
Should gives you that
And-
flexibility. As
president.
soon as you say shall, you got no flexibility. You're out of order because you put him before him.
Okay, Kevin, what do you think?
Should, would,
I
could, yeah.
accomplished my task.
This is perfect board work right here. However you guys would like to see it. One thing I have seen with boards, that with their agenda,
Yay.
Or should?
Should or shall?
Should. I don't really care either way.
Either.
My whole intent here is to wake us all up.
Right.
And have us start.
Paying attention to
We
the orders of
got,
the day.
nothing against the press, but we got raped in the press for being almost buffoons, and we deserved it. Because we were not acting like a cohesive board, we didn't have our stuff together. And what I'm trying to do is get our act
Good is
together so that we can streamline things, deal with things appropriately, have something that we can lean on and say, this is the way we do it. We can change it, but
You
we
just
need to have a
cut, you
starting
just cut
point.
off the manager when he was trying to say something.
Oh, I'm good. I can listen. But what I've seen boards do in the past was that their first agenda item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
So at that point, if you say, I make a motion to approve the agenda, or I make a motion to change the agenda, or however you would like to do it, it kind of brings it all up to light right at the beginning. And then if you have a consultant here, or you think something's more important than where it's being placed, you say, I would like to make a motion to change item H to item A.
You put it on consent. Approval of agenda on consent, and then if somebody wants to change it, then you pull it off
Oh, there you
consent.
are. Because I can see very seldom would we ever
So do
desire
we want to
to.
split this then? Does anybody have a problem with the first action, which is unfinished business shall be addressed before new business unless preempted by a motion and majority vote of the board?
No.
I still like should, but just like you
Should-
said.
Should's fine.
Yeah.
Should's fine.
Should.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll change it to should.
I'll go along with it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is that for both of them?
We
This
want
is
to
for
be
the
happy,
first
Dan.
one, first
No,
one
that
so
shall
far.
just made me feel more power, Dan.
It
but
should.
I'll back off to should.
Thank you.
Okay,
You're winning, Dan, you're winning.
so,
She wanted to know if that include the should on both of them or what?
Okay.
Sure.
just a
so
minute,
first we're
a
just
minute.
doing the first one.
We need Georgiana to get the motion right, so.
But it
Okay.
is,
We haven't made a
Question,
motion.
Georgiana?
there's no motion yet, is there?
No,
No.
we're just dealing with
We're still talking.
4.43E.
Yeah.
So
I
right now,
think we
separately.
got it so far.
Okay.
So you want me to amend the action requested, Georgiana? Would that help?
There's no
Well, we
action.
have a motion.
No
There's
action,
no motion yet,
motion's
so the
been
motion
made.
will
I'm
include the
just trying to
change.
straighten out.
Yeah, the motion will include the change.
How was this for you? Were we finished talking? I'll make the motion.
What'd you guys think about the agenda that Kevin brought up? Talk about that later. That's not a bad
Second.
idea.
Second.
Okay. Only it's not on.
So
the
just
Yeah,
on
right.
4.43E.
My motions can say
Oh, but
one.
I don't want to do them both. I want
So
to
we're
divide
gonna
it.
But I
split.
do.
Okay, here we go.
We're going to split the vote, so we're going to take one as the first vote.
No, I'm going to make a motion to include both, so just listen.
There's already a
If I get
motion on the
voted,
table,
No, there's
right?
no,
No, there's no
there's no
motion yet.
motion.
No motion. Okay, sorry.
no motion's been made, Kevin. Want to talk, no motion.
You have the motion, Dan?
I was just getting prepared to. I move in regards to 4.3D, excuse me, E and F, that we change the verb shall to should, and otherwise as suggested.
With the addition of the language we discussed earlier.
As determined
With
by
respect to F.
Secretary
Determined by the board.
Oh, yes. With the added verbiage
president,
beyond
manager,
importance,
and
yes. Thank you for that, Dustin.
Okay, Georgiana, can you read it?
It is for both, yes.
Georgiana?
I'll second that.
Okay. Georgiana, can you read back the motion for us, please?
So,
Okay,
sorry.
that's all right.
You want
We're
to
waiting
read
for
the
you.
motion?
Read the motion back so we all understand what we're voting on.
The motion was to approve section, the changes to section 4.3E and 4.3F, that we change the verb shall to should with the addition of the language, and to include the addition of the language with the verbiage
As determined.
as determined by the district secretary, district manager, and
Board president.
board president.
That's it. That's what I said.
Okay, we've got a second. Do we have any more talk about it?
I seconded it.
Talked
Oh,
enough.
I know. Second.
I move to divide the question.
Okay.
brother.
How will you want to divide it?
I'd like to make 4.4.3E separate from 4.43F.
Okay, you want us to vote on what now?
On the first 4.43E separate from 4.43F.
Okay, will you make a motion for that?
She just did.
She just did.
I
yeah.
Yes,
I made a
did we
motion.
have a
that
second?
If there's no second, it dies.
Dies for lack of a second. Okay.
No second? Okay,
Okay?
dies then. Okay. Now, this is
Repeat
why
the
nobody
original
wants
motion
my
then.
job.
Want to repeat the original motion?
No, I think that he was wondering, do you open to the public now?
Oh, no, I looked and nobody was putting their hand
Oh,
up.
okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
No, so we're set to vote on it.
Yeah,
now. So
just all those in favor.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Oh, good, you're in my class now, you got a 4-1 vote. Next one.
No tonight, huh?
Last item for me. Chapter 4 of the Policies and Procedures Manual states in 4.6A, all meetings of the board shall be conducted according to the Ralph M.
Yeah.
Brown Act.
Hang on, Cliff. You skip G.
What I do?
4.3G.
Committee reports.
Oh, yeah,
Reports.
we already did
Oh,
E and
oh, oh.
F.
Yes,
You're
we're on
adding
page
one
81
more.
now.
Where
Yeah,
was that at?
You're behind me.
Hang on.
page 82. Bottom of 82.
No, page 81.
It's on your screen.
Oh, yeah, but I mean,
Come on.
Oh, the motion.
It's on your
You got
screen.
Brennan with me.
He's
What
added
page are we
items.
He's
on?
going to read page 81.
correct.
Okay. So, the current practice for committee reports is to read one's notes or recount by memory events that have transpired since the last board meeting. This process can add additional time to the end of the board meetings and at times can be quite lengthy. A much better process would be to have the committee's report prepared and submitted in time to be included in the agenda packet. At the appropriate time, the head of each committee can ask the board members or the public if there are any questions in regards to the report. If not, then we can move on to the next item without a lengthy reading. So the action requested is add Chapter 4, 4.3G, committee reports shall be submitted, if possible then, to the district secretary by noon.
Thank you.
12 p.m. on the Thursday preceding the following week's board meeting for inclusion into the agenda. And I just have to add, a lot of times we get to the end of the meeting and then we have these committee reports and they can go on and on and on. And,
Well,
I think it's more appropriate that we can read that report and then if we have a question when it comes up, we can say, I got a question about your report. Otherwise, we've already read it. We don't have to read it again and have everybody sit through it.
Actually, I'd like to have the committee reports, they used to be in the beginning of the agenda.
Me too.
And then they would influence the business that came up concerning those committee reports. I really don't like them at the end of the agenda, because very often we've talked about the thing and the committee reports don't have much value by then. And so,
And that's a great idea. They
Yeah,
could
that
be
is a
in
good
front.
idea. That's a good
But I
idea.
still think that they need to be in
well, I
the
can talk
agenda
to
so we can read
Kevin
them
and
ahead of time.
Georgiana.
Submit it ahead of time.
The
Yeah,
agenda.
I agree with that.
If we all agree, we can put it in the front, like it used to be. But as far as I'm terrible at this. I go, okay, I got to help approve the agenda. Georgiana sends me an email. I go over the agenda, and maybe I have some things to add or subtract. Tonight, I found 2 items to add to the Conservation Committee. Now, which I didn't have yesterday, and I'm going, okay. Then we come up with a report. Well, in committees that at least I'm chair of, Jim is involved, usually taking the notes and for the meeting, and he's the one that presents it, or Kevin does, or somebody else on the staff takes the minutes. So I thought that's a great arrangement, because if you're presiding over a meeting and you're trying to talk to everybody and make sure
can't take
everything,
notes,
there's no way you can make accurate minutes, and I'm the chairman of both committees. So I really appreciate the staff's help, and Jim does a really good job. So I'm going, wait a minute, this puts a time limit on staff. He's got a lot of work to do. And I'm going, you guys that have your committees, there is staff that comes to them. So why not just do what the other committee, or at least the committees I'm involved in, have asked somebody on the staff and talk to Kevin about it, if that's possible or not.
I don't really care who creates the report, whether it's staff or board member.
Just
What
have
I'd
it
like
done.
is to be able to read that report
Ahead of
when I
time.
get the agenda, so that I know I can be prepared if I have questions. And if not, then I know what's going on, and we don't need to bother everybody with everybody taking an hour and a half to read the reports, you know?
I don't see it being a formal report. I'm not, I don't think we want to
synopsized bullet items.
Yeah, I don't think
that's
we
all
want
you
to
need
burden
do.
anybody with extra work.
Oh, no,
I mean,
I
that's my I got notes on my meeting right here in front of me, and it was just scribbly stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think we could really make it just a condensed version, and I like the idea.
We will learn to be succinct.
Yeah.
I think the director should have the option to either do it in writing or orally. I think it should be like may be submitted if possible, and not always, so it's not a hard and fast rule. So if I don't get that written report in, then,
I'm finally rubbing off on her. She don't like the shall.
I don't like that
late,
shall.
but-
Okay, so did I put shall in that one
Yeah,
too?
yeah.
Damn it.
I think we all like your concept.
I don't mind softening it up. And I know there are going to be times when you have a meeting at the last minute and tomorrow's a board meeting, and you don't have time to get it in. I get that. But what I'm saying is, the general rule, if we could streamline things by saying, here's our report, here it is, Georgiana, put it in the agenda, information only, we get to read it, great. I might have a question about that, do a little research, then it comes to board meeting and I go, hey, Bill, what did you mean by this? But I don't have to wait until I hear you say it at the end of the night when I'm tired and want to go home, because then I'm just going to say, who cares?
So this is not precluding still the item on the agenda. It's just
Yeah,
simply
it's
that we
separate.
would have
Yeah.
everything in down from the
Because
meeting.
any
in front.
actionable
like
item
to-
from committee
So
is
if
on.
we
is
had
on
a question of that committee, we can still say, hey, what about the fence?
Of course.
Right,
Of course.
correct. That's it. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the report is separate from actionable items.
Sure, of course.
From committee.
Yeah.
Because those
You
go on the
can,
agenda.
you can make comments, we just don't want you to read the whole,
Yeah.
give it to us ahead of time, so if we have a question, you can explain it, but
Like it.
otherwise, we've already read
I want you
it.
to feel like you've been at the committee meeting. Come on, Cliff.
Okay, it doesn't seem like anybody, Jim wants to comment. Okay, Jim, thank you.
Yeah, because you told him he was gonna have to make a report.
No, he's already doing
Keep it brief, though.
Jim Passanisi, do you want to draw a distinction between standing and ad hoc committees? Or ad hoc could be way more informal, or standing might be a little more.
And maybe
as an
just standing
agenda.
committees,
I don't
not ad
think
hoc
we've
be
ever
oral.
prepared an agenda for an ad hoc committee.
Right.
It's much easier to write minutes when you have an agenda to.
That's right. Tie it
There
to.
might be a distinction for you to talk about.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, thank you again. This is a touchy subject for the public, who is represented by you, our elected people. You have to understand, we don't get everything that's in the packet. In fact, the one for today, because it was over 30 megabytes, my computer would not download it. It's limited to 5 minutes. So I could not get the packet. I have to read it here. The point is that much of the work that goes on behalf of the board is behind the scenes. If you add up the 2 or 3 hours that you're here, it represents maybe 20 hours of what you've done on committees. Mm-hmm. You need to sit there and tell us what your committee did to our faces while we're here. If you have to summarize a 10-page report into a couple of paragraphs, that's fine. But we need to know from you, our representatives, what you and your committee have done.
Or that works for you because you come to these meetings. There are probably 1,000 people who read the agenda that don't show up, and they'll never hear that report because it's verbal here and not written.
They can watch
You
it
got
on
a thing in the
Facebook.
corner that solves that problem.
You gotta be on Facebook.
It doesn't matter how you get the information.
Yeah.
The people need to hear
True.
it from you.
Count the people in this audience.
I hear you, Ward. Thank
then
you.
compare that to how many would get that info if it was recorded
Maura, do you
and
want to talk
documented.
now? Okay.
And ask your wife. This is what happens at the end of council meetings. Each person reports on what they were supposed to do, where they've been, what meetings they attended, and the public gets to hear it. You're here on behalf of the public that voted for you. You need to report back to us what your committee's doing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ward.
Warren Harvey, sorry I didn't take my hat off before I forgot I was wearing it.
It looks better with it on.
I agree with him. I want to hear the report. I don't want to have to dig through 5,000 pages before I get here for it. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I like to hear it, because if I read it, I may not comprehend it. I don't know. So I only went a few years to college.
Thank you, Lauren, because that's kind of a comment I said a moment ago about that. It doesn't preclude the fact that we're still going to give a report. It's just going to be more synopsized, and a person, I think when a chairman or whatever has to put something down on paper in bullet items, it's going to condense it.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I think that we can improve greatly on that. Instead of wandering when we give our reports, keep it succinct. Yeah.
Well, how about you make the report ahead of time and you give the public the Reader's Digest version?
That's what I'm saying. I just said that.
As long as
Right.
it's written like that, that's fine, because
You got
then at least it comes up right for us. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Lauren.
you.
Georgiana, do you have any opinion on this?
Well, I know it was suggested, the prior board, to put the committee reports in there, and so we did that, I think, once or twice, and then we were asked to remove it because it added extra paper in the agenda packet. So, I mean, I don't have really a preference.
Maybe we can try it again.
Well, here's another reason I would like them in the agendas, okay? You send those out as PDFs. I myself save the PDFs. I can go back and I can find on those, and I can review information that if it's oral here, is in one ear and out the other and gone.
Yeah.
And I don't have any way of going back and saying, what was it that they said about that I had an interest in? And it's gone now. So if it's documented, it's not gone. They can still give a summary of what they did. What I still think that I myself would appreciate having that knowledge, because we got to read the agenda, we've got to go through it before the meetings, and I would like to be able to review that information and formulate any questions I might have about it, and not have to try and think of it at the end of the meeting when somebody gives their spiel about what their committee did.
Yeah.
It's just too late to do anything about it then.
Well, we're
I
trying
think
to
we all agree.
the agenda items that we have the committee reports in the beginning.
Yeah, move it
And
up.
then if whatever they apply to whatever else is on the agenda, it will help with those committee reports. The way they are now, I agree, they're not much help because they're at the end of the meeting, regardless of the forum they're given. It's usually after the meeting has gone on, and the education or the insights you might get from a committee report is not as valuable as if you get it in the beginning. As far as putting it in writing and everything, I'm not very good at that. I rely on somebody else to do it. On the two most important committees, and the ad hoc committee, when we did meet, I think it was just for once, that I took minutes because I had to write down exactly how we changed the bylaws.
How about we table this one until we have a little more discussion on it then at an appropriate time?
Oh,
Don't we all agree?
It sounds to me like there's some good points on both sides. For this, it's not a major thing, so let's table it for right now.
Okay, the next one is
But-
Robert's.
Wait, Shake. We're done.
Yeah.
I think at least four of us agree, and
If you change shall to may, that gives the director the
that gives
option.
him, that gives somebody,
Okay.
yeah, because we agree with you.
Well, I thought you wanted to,
a
do
good
we have
idea.
to separate that out, his
No.
moving that to the front of the
No,
agenda?
because they can,
Or
the
is that a
three of them
separate
can do
item?
it.
They take care of the
That doesn't
agenda.
require, okay.
And
Just
the
allow us
committee,
to do
the
that.
committee
Then-
chair can still give a verbal
Yeah.
summary,
Yeah,
right?
So you could read it, but I want to
Right,
tell you.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you have a
Summary,
written
summary.
report.
Now we've got the best of the best.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
reason we talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Georgiana, can you read back the motion?
Well, I don't have.
There is no motion.
One motion
No
yet.
motion, somebody must make a motion.
Okay, here we go.
It's on page 81.
Okay.
It's on your screen, too.
Yep.
So I move that we amend the policy procedure manual 4.4.3G with the one change, the word shall to may, as stated, with that change.
Second.
I
Any
shall
more
try to
comments?
use
Yes,
should
Gordon?
more often.
Yes, it says there, for inclusion in the agenda.
Right.
Okay. Not in the packet, in the agenda.
Which means it's part of the packet, the agenda packet.
That stinks.
Oh.
Do you want us to put packet on after that? We'll do that.
Remember, Ward, that we're still going to talk to you about it. we're just making it, yeah,
So,
okay.
so we have, so
Come
we
on
know
down to
what's
my
on the
house, I'll
agenda.
print it out for you.
We'll give you as much detail on a committee item as you would like.
Want.
Yeah.
However, I would still like to see it documented for historical purposes and for people to have the time before the meeting to read it, come up with any questions they might have about it. You might read something that Bill wrote and say, darn, I'm glad he mentioned that. I gotta go do a little research. I got some questions to ask him. But you're not gonna be able to do that if it's the end of the night and he reads the report to you then.
Do we have minutes of this meeting?
Georgiana produces
yes.
the minutes.
Well, if there's minutes, it includes what somebody said. There's your documentation. Why go beyond that?
It's not word
It's
for
not
word.
Because most of what anybody says here is pretty short.
You're not the normal customer out there. You always show up. You're more in tune with what's going on here than most of them are. So,
Also,
the average.
also, I would like it up front, not a month later,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any more comments by the board? All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Let's go on to the next one.
All right.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay. Now we get to Robert's Rules. So Chapter 4 of the Policies and Procedures Manual states in 4.6A, all meetings of the board shall be conducted according to the Ralph M. Brown Act. The board prefers a flexible form of meeting. However, at times, Robert's Rules of Order may be instituted at the discretion of the chair or by a majority vote of the board. The rules of procedure at meetings should be simple enough for most people to understand. Unfortunately, that's not always been the case. Virtually all clubs, associations, boards, councils, and bodies follow a set of rules, Robert's Rules of Order, which are embodied in a small but complex book. Virtually no one I know has actually read this book cover to cover. Worse yet, the book was written for another time and for another purpose. If one was chairing or running a parliament, then Robert's Rules of Order is a dandy and quite useful handbook for procedures in that complex setting. On the other hand, if one is running a meeting of, say, a 5-member body with a few members of the public in attendance, a simplified version of the rules of parliamentary procedure is in order. Action requested: change Chapter 4, 4.6A of the Policies and Procedures Manual to read, all meetings of the board shall be conducted according to the Ralph M. Brown Act. The board prefers a flexible form of meeting. However, at times, Rosenberg's Rules of Order may be instituted at the discretion of the chair or by a majority vote of the board. And Rosenberg's Rules of Order
They are easier.
is 10 pages. It was written by a judge specifically for special districts just like ours. It makes absolute sense. Anybody can read this thing and understand the proper procedure for running a board meeting, and it makes sense that we should utilize this document instead of Robert's Rules of Order.
On this one, I'd like to speak. Robert's Rules of Order was invented or written, the first book was quite thin, and it was a colonel in, I think he was a colonel, Army Corps of Engineers that traveled up and down the Mississippi River, the Missouri River, and had hearings on works being done along the river where people would come in and talk about levees and other things at the time. He wrote them because his meetings were extremely long and complicated, and there was nothing that existed to help run a meeting. It wasn't written for Parliament. Parliament is different altogether. The book over the years grew in size because people had special needs to address. So the book is not something you read like any other book. It's a reference. If you're having a problem with what do we do if this happens, you can open the book, go to the different references that it has in there, And I don't know anybody that's ever read the book. I had one director one time who was putting me off, said, "Oh, I've already read that." And I thought, wow, you're amazing. I don't know anybody that's ever read that. And so what we've been using here is just a short thing. The only thing I caught on glancing through the new one is that he says we can go ahead without a second. Now, the reason the second was put in by Robert's Rules of Order originally was to cut the bait, just like it does here. In other words, you get the second, and then you can go to the action. If it isn't, just like happened to Ann a little while ago, if there isn't a second, it drops. But in this new book, what I read in there, it
That
says
was
it doesn't
interesting,
have to be
yeah.
a second.
That was
So,
interesting.
which is, to me, one of the big things about Robert's Rules of Order. I've been taught this in Toastmaster for years, but we really don't go beyond about 6 rules, and that's about it. The rest of it we don't do. And then the papers that I've handed out, the short one-sheet thing, is meant to be a help without having to refer to the book itself, but here's your motions and so forth. Doug Flesher was quite an expert at this and running meetings, and he brought up some things that the rest of the board didn't understand on special voting and on circumstances. So I think it's a tried and true book. It's referred to by almost, like you're saying, almost all public agencies of one sort or another. It has all sorts of explanations in it, but it was invented simply to cut the length of meetings and bring order to them. It was not written for any government, parliaments, assemblies, or anything like that. It was written to work Army Corps of Engineers business along those rivers and to get able to get a decision and go home before 10 o'clock, which is, we're not going to go home before 10 o'clock. Anyway, that's my explanation.
That's history. Actually, we observe Rosenberg's pretty closely now, anyway. So,
Yes,
Yeah.
and I read Robert's Rules of Order, the whole damn book, Bill, because you gave it to me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and
it's
when I
confusing.
got done, I was more confused.
It's very
Actually, you were.
confusing.
And I read this, and I said, now this makes sense. It's concise, it's compact.
It is in there. No, you can still have a second, and that's the discretion of the president, the chair. So,
And
I
we're going to follow a
personally still advocate it.
flexible. See?
Well, that's not what you wrote down
Oh,
here.
yes, it is.
It
I
is.
said flexible.
It says flexible. The flexible is still in there.
But it does say you
I didn't say shall, I said it's going to be flexible, but we're.
Well, you don't have anything about Robert's Rules of Order in it.
No, I said,
But it
the
says-
only
At
thing I
times you
did
want to
was,
use Rosenberg.
It says,
I want to use Rosenberg
this chair
instead of
determines if any
Roberts
member of the
because
body
it's less
wishes to second the
confusing for
motion on
everybody.
number 6. That's the sixth
It makes sense. And
But
it
the way
just
I read it, you
streamlines
still
things.
can.
It will do. It will do for what we need to do, and we don't need to get more complex. This is all about making it fun,
We're
and
not using a complex thing of Robert's Rules.
we can and will when it suits one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
that's
one
true.
thing we could do, Bill, we could have a copy or copies of this out front, and people could go through this in a matter of minutes, literally. I mean,
Well, let's see what happens when you follow it and you don't have a second to a motion.
Oh, no, you still
we
can
can
have a
still-
second.
we can
You
still
can,
have a second.
you-
We can still
and
have a second.
especially you as president, you can still request it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can still do that.
It doesn't throw it out. It just
It
says
is, I mean, it actually gives you a, hey, here's how you run it, here's what you say, boom, it's done.
It's very clear.
It
kind of
just
a
makes
common
sense.
sense.
It's
very,
so simple.
very
So-
easy. Yeah.
So
Okay,
I have a
Dustin.
question on this part
On
for
the- At
Dustin.
the different water districts you go to, what do they use?
Most don't have any explicit reference to Robert's Rules of Order, so PID's current policy is actually, I would say, in the minority. A lot of it just comes down to kind of custom practice. You know, what the district's been doing for decades. New members come on, they learn, and eventually they assume the role of chair, and they just move on with past practice. The Brown Act is, what I want to emphasize, I've emphasized this in the past, the Brown Act is really the only legal requirement, and it's fairly light on these types of issues. So if you want to have something to kind of fill in the gaps, whether it's Robert's Rules of Order or this or something else, it's fine.
I have a question on this, this Rosenberg's Rules of Order. There's a section on page 91 that discusses majority and supermajority votes. To the third paragraph from the bottom of the left, first column, with the abstention that it means, and then also it discusses it again on page 92. Also the second to the last paragraph in the first column. And it seemed that that was contrary to our policy procedure where I remember that a vote to abstain was like a vote in favor. And so would this be contrary to that?
I'd have to look more closely to give you an answer, and I'll do that. But my recollection is let's take eminent domain action. That requires a supermajority, 4 out of 5. And let's say only 4 members are present, 1 abstains. In that circumstance, my recollection is that abstention, as long as it's not for conflict of interest purposes. If it's just a board member, this is too hot of an issue, I'm going to abstain. That is considered an affirmative vote for the purpose of a supermajority vote. And there's lots of variations that we've tried to distill into your current policy.
Yeah, and it is in here. The 4 point. It's considered casting a
Yes, it is in there.
affirmative vote. Yeah, 4.7 and 4.8 discusses that. Presumption of assent is the other one.
If I remember right, the affirmative vote is for the majority. So it doesn't mean you're like if you 3 voted no, and you abstain, it doesn't mean you're voting yes. It means you're voting for the majority vote.
Oh, okay, that's even different than I understood.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
The occasion of that is,
2 years,
I've
3 years. somewhere
never
in
seen that ever
those
happen
were-
Yeah.
on every board.
Because in some ways it's explained that if you abstained, it's like you're absent, and then they can take the majority out of the members that are left.
If there's a conflict of interest, like
Town council's incurring right now.
yeah, like the sewer issue, you are not there. That's a true abstention. Your vote is not counted. What the examples I've tried to provide are, if it's not a conflict of interest, then there are case law examples where they say an abstention is treated as a vote for the majority.
Okay.
And it comes into play a lot of times when you need that supermajority vote or you need quorum. That's another common example. Let's say there's only 3 board members here. One board member says, I'm abstaining. Well, we've lost our quorum. Unless you have a policy that says, no, if you're abstaining for non-conflict of interest reasons, then you're still present for the vote and you're voting in favor of the affirmative, whatever the other 2 board members decide.
You know how often you'll see that?
And
Never.
I believe that the voting in here is the same as in the Robert's Rules of Order. Majority and everything else is pretty much the same. Well, it is the same. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but.
But our voting is the Brown Act, that's what's in our policy?
Yes.
No.
And case law.
Okay.
The voting, the counting of the votes and the supermajority,
I haven't read it.
those, what I saw the two, there's no,
I saw it.
You are correct.
But-
yeah. It's just the ease of the procedure of.
Didn't we have a situation where that came up?
Well, it just seemed to me that this one paragraph was contrary to our policy.
Did research on it.
Which we go on the Brown Act. Just one paragraph here. And then the other part, I think the example they gave for majority, supermajority, was if a board did not have any other policy, this is how you would count the vote. But we actually have a policy, so that would come into effect.
Right, so if we
That would
didn't have a policy, then it would.
That would
Robert's
override.
Rules of Order poses that the same way in its book as
Okay.
Rosenberg does.
Okay, but this is just this one paragraph I have trouble with that I think is contrary to our policy, which is based on the Brown Act, not
Well,
Robert's Rules of
But
Order.
in the Robert's Rules of Order would also be in conflict with it, what you're saying then, because it states the same as Rosenberg.
Okay.
But we already are saying that we'll use a flexible version of
Okay.
Robert's Rules of Order. And this voting here in supermajority and the counting of votes is the same in Robert's Rules of Order as it is.
Yeah, I'm for simplifying this and going in that direction.
I
I think
like
that's
it.
a good idea, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I see this paragraph now. I think what
He's speaking to is an abstention in the true sense, that it's a conflict of interest. That board member cannot vote. That would be my guess. That's
Only way it makes sense.
reading between, yeah.
Okay.
You want to say something, Lee?
Yeah, having also had experience on numerous committees and boards, Robert's Rules, newly revised, is a much easier read, but it's also very commonly used as a reference or resource rather than a strict set of you must do this.
Yep.
Frankly, when it comes down to practice, which is what you have a practice that works for your board, unless there's some irritant to that practice where you have to go to a reference work to say, oops, that was out of order, you don't have an issue that needs a set of formal rules like that one or like Roberts. Because for the most part, the Roberts is designed now as a, oops, something went wrong, let's see what the book says. So your practice avoids you getting to that point. You don't need to change to some other document. Thank you.
May I make a motion?
Yep.
I move that we approve the suggested change in 4.6A as presented.
I'll second.
Any more debate? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'll be the no vote, so let's go on to the next thing in the agenda.
I'll kind of give a background on this, and then I'm going to give the board the option to maybe table this until the budget workshop. We had I'm going to go back years. Back in the day, we had a distribution system operator, and he went around and did testing on the distribution system and did all of the sampling and all of that stuff. And he was with the district for many, many, many years. He then retired about 7 years ago. When he retired, they looked at the job and tried to kind of maybe change it to be more of a treatment plant filler with that distribution operator job title. And so they kind of changed they changed the job description and gave him a new title. And that title was, they actually listed him as a treatment plant operator. There was new requirements in there to get his certificates. I think it was a T3, and that there was supposed to be times where he was going to fill in for the day shift operator and learn the treatment plan. It just practicality just didn't work out. There was enough work out there on the distribution side that he continued to do that. The person also learned the ano beds and did a lot of that type of training. And so it was still really a lot of what he did was still the distribution system operator. So it never kind of really came to fruition. So, long story short, he just has left the district currently. And so we kind of look back at that to see maybe we need to just go back and fill that distribution system operator with some updates to the job description, being that the job description was over 8 years old. And so Jim went through and looked at the job description, made the appropriate changes. He ran it through the union with their changes and with their recommendations. And so what you have currently is the distribution system operator job description. There is a change in the range of what that distribution system operator was making 8 years ago to what he's making currently, but it is actually less than what the water treatment operator who was in that position was making at the time. So there is a salary decrease from what the person who was in that position to what we're going to fill that position with. The reason why I say I'll give you the opportunity to table it is because a lot of our operations and how we work and how things are done within the district, the needs of the district in certain areas around are going to be really discussed in the budget workshop. Okay. And so if that's something that you would rather discuss this position and what he does with all of the managers here and understanding all of that, then you can table that until that time. It's also kind of getting late, but or you guys can handle it today, and then we can go forward with it. So that's where I'll leave it at that point.
What was the workers' comp classification when he was doing both those jobs?
That's a good question. I bet you it was probably under the treatment plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been a lower rate than service tech out in the field.
Probably, yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So there's going to be a higher cost.
Slightly higher
For
cost
the workers'
on
comp side. I know my service guys out in the field, it's a much bigger.
Yeah. Ours, I don't think our range will
Dan
change
could probably
much.
speak to that.
Yeah.
You could probably speak to that.
Guys in the field, it's real high. As soon as they climb up on the roof, it's extremely high.
Yeah. He probably would be classified as on the distribution side if we change this for workers' comp issues.
Although they probably would have had a problem if he'd have got injured while out on a distribution job site.
Probably. So it probably is better classified in that.
Should be classified at what he's doing.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, okay. Is this something we could take up in the admin committee meeting and?
Do you people that understand it have a problem? Why can't we just do it right now?
No, that's fine.
Well, I'd be happy to do it at the workshop, to talk to, I'd like to see Keith's input.
It's up to you. I don't understand it.
But or we could talk
It
about
doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know what the salary level, if that's an issue, we maybe need to discuss that, but
Apparently it's not. You've got that resolved already. I mean,
if that's according
The
to,
union's already agreed to this.
union
right?
has that set.
Salary level? They agreed to the salary level? Yeah.
So that position, okay. Well,
And you have met and
Do you want to
conferred.
speak on it? I know it's up.
I guess
we
we'll
can
work on it
eliminate
tonight,
one more
then.
item tonight.
I have-
Good.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm really not comfortable with which direction you're going. It's not that complicated. I'm sorry.
Okay, then let's talk about it tonight.
The treatment plant operator job description has no elements of what the distribution person has been doing. None.
So it needs to be appropriate to what
Completely
he's doing.
inappropriate.
yeah, we got that.
Well, we got that part.
Okay, no,
We
yeah,
got that
we're
part.
with you on that, Jim, yeah. No,
We
we're-
got that. We got that. That was
Well,
made pretty clear by Kevin.
I had a couple things,
I
when
do
I looked
too.
at the job description, excuse me, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, maybe I should defer now because I just think it's crystal clear that that is the job description of the person that needs to be adopted.
I don't think we were questioning
Yeah, we're-
that. I was
yeah,
just
we're
wondering if
questioning
we
that.
should discuss it.
Yeah,
Not
we're
the salary
questioning
range or whatever, but if that's already set by the job classification, then.
that. No, I wasn't worried about that
No,
either.
Motion down here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I have some questions about the job description since you're here, and we're going to do it tonight, I guess.
Can I get a motion,
No,
please?
No,
She has
we're
a
still
couple-
discussing.
Got some discussion.
She has a couple
Discussing.
of questions.
Well, that's the problem right now. Would you please respect each other for we can hear one person at a time. In other words, we're having 3 conversations right now, and it's not working. And you were doing something down there I knew nothing about. I was listening over here. So please, let's do one person at a time.
Well, if we do this appropriately, we should make a motion and read it, and then we should discuss it. That's the proper procedure.
Okay.
So, somebody want to call the motion, and then we will discuss it.
That's the only part I have a problem with in those orders. because
Where's the action?
Sometimes
It's right down here.
discussion changes the motion.
I move approval to authorize revisions to the distribution system operator job description, adjust the pay range to Schedule 18, Schedule B, $21.76 to $30.97, and replace the currently allocated TPO position in treatment with a DSO position.
I second that. Now we open it for discussion.
Okay. Part of the description was learn general treatment operations at the district's plant and assist plant operators as needed. And then the other part was obtain a T2. Now, my understanding of this last position, this person never operated a day in their life. Is that correct?
They did not operate. He never did.
So why?
There's reasons for that.
So why would you
But
want
he did
this?
learn the plant.
So why would you want this person to get a T2 and also be assisting treatment
Because
plant
it's called
operations?
succession planning. This person is succession planning. This person works directly with the operators. while he's there, and the person will be learning the plant, and it allows us to eventually move up a person inside that has learned the plant, which takes a long time to learn how to operate our plant.
So,
So it takes, that's why we're requiring the D2, so that person is prepared to get T3
so you're,
and move into the position well-trained.
you're using this as a on-the-job training for future T3. At your treatment plant right now, doesn't the state authorize you to hire a T2 and train that person and as long as they're supervised
Permission for a short period
Can
of
do
time.
till they can get their T3?
They have to be supervised.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
to be closely supervised.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of, we don't, eventually, we want the person to learn, and then become an independent operator. When if for some reason somebody leaves, then that person will be very well trained. Our plan is not that easy to operate.
Okay.
Let me just say, our operators make it look easy because they've been there for 20 years.
Then let me flip that around. Do you feel that this person is going to have enough time in this position to actually learn the treatment plan?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It'll be a slow process of learning.
Thank you.
It's not the primary duty. It's as fits in.
And I had a question. My question now, I haven't looked at really any of the job descriptions. I'd like to look at job descriptions, but I just haven't taken the time yet. But what I was curious about, there's no verbiage in here about callback or emergency work. Is that just implied in our district policy that employees will be subject to callback and emergency work? Because, I mean, we always had that in our, where I came from, we always had that embedded in our job descriptions. I don't see this at all.
It's in all of their MOUs.
Yeah, but
I don't know if it's required. It's not a requirement.
well, yeah, not required, but you'll be subject to.
Subject to, yeah. That's a good point.
And that's what I was kind of thinking. Well,
Remember, this is a meet and confer item with the union representative. So anytime you want to change it and add, that comes with a price, usually.
well, I totally understand that, but I was actually surprised that I didn't see this. And this is the only job description that I've looked at, basically, except for the general manager, of course. But
We don't come back for emergencies.
It wasn't in there formally before, in the last person.
Right.
But the person can become part of the on-call schedule rotation.
yeah, I'm not talking about on call. I'm talking about emergency work and.
That's inherent in our field. We're required
Right.
to come to plants in emergency.
It may not be part of the job
Not
description, but it's
necessary to write
included
that
in
in.
all of their union everything right down
Okay,
there.
I guess I just haven't seen that.
But
I haven't.
I would
read
imagine
that,
it would
but-
apply to every
But
employee.
we would plug it right into the job description, so there was no
They-
doubt about
Your
it.
people did.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the first time I haven't.
And I don't believe any of our job descriptions ever have any of that, what you're suggesting. It's expected, or it's inferred in the district.
Well, I'd like to see that then.
Yeah.
I would like to see that.
It definitely is in the MOU.
It's
I
probably
know.
in the MOU.
And you raised an important question that I'm curious about now. Why would you have a job description that delineates what the qualifications are, and yet the qualifications include something outside of the job description? And this is a union position. How would they even stand for that?
Well, they put it in, they okayed that.
I mean,
This has been-
if the
you met and conferred.
qualifications for a distribution operator require X,
Yeah, D2.
and you say, but within certain period of time, you better have this or you're going to go, and the this is for that they aren't, then it makes no sense.
It's confusing.
Yeah. Why would you make them have qualifications? Why would you hire a Class B truck driver and say he has to have a Class A license?
Okay, let's have Dustin.
Well, the union has signed off on that. That's correct. We've already gone through the meet and confer process, so they've agreed to it. Meet and confer, just by way of background, anytime you propose a change to terms and conditions of employment, you have to meet and confer, discuss it. And so, Kevin, maybe Jim, I don't know who, went through that process already, and they've signed off on the changes.
It was actually the union that suggested the T2, if that's what you're concerning with at the moment. Make sure I understand the T2, because this person works directly with our operators. He needs to this person, he or she, needs to understand what the operators do, so they can, when changes or things that are happening at the plant that affect water quality in the distribution system, this person understands what the operators are dealing with. So consequently, a T2 is an appropriate skill level for this person to have, because interfacing with operators.
So there's somewhere that says that a distribution operation person should have the qualities of a water treatment plant operator?
Skills, certain level of skills.
Well, here, only here. It's not a state requirement, it's just this particular job.
This is kind of a transition position, I guess, is what you're saying, right?
I mean, I get that you say if you want to get promoted and make more money, you need to learn more skills and go to classes and become better so that you can advance to the plant. But it just seems kind of strange that you would require them to have skills that would be for the water treatment plant when we're asking to not call them a water treatment plant operator. We're asking them to be called a distribution operation, but we still want them to have the qualifications of that plant operator.
This person does a lot of customer service, and in terms of water quality. So when things are going on at the plant, the person sometimes needs to explain to the person changes in water quality or misconceptions about our water quality, more importantly, that really aren't happening. They could be happening on the customer side. And this person needs to understand the treatment. So if there's surely not a problem with treatment, then he understands that there's really not a problem. Or conversely, if there is a problem, then he would tell them that because he understands treatment.
Well, I would assume I could ask you, because you run the plant. I'd say, is there a problem? You say no, and I can convey that to my customer. But I don't have a problem with that, Jim. It just seems like we're asking to change the job description of the guy from what he was doing because we say he's not doing it, but then you're saying he needs to have the qualifications to do it.
Well, my understanding is that the employee involved in here went over to South Feather, and now they want to revise the job description for the new person and make it more efficient,
Make it less
applicable to
stringent.
what the work actually is done. And having known Jason was a very good employee, I can remember when he helped me when a cow broke a pipe and we couldn't find the heater to turn it off. He was able to read the map and help us find where the meter was, which was very much of a surprise to us where we found it. So the man also needs to be, or woman, quite good at public relations and working with others. That's actually probably the most important part of his job. The rest of it seems to follow along, and then he has to get a D3 certification within 18 months. I don't know what D3 is. So I think they've got it all described pretty well, and it sounds like it's something to make the district have a better service for our customers. Is that the goal?
Of course.
Okay.
Does this provide you more flexibility too? Is that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all enters it. And so could we get somebody to make a motion? I move approval and go on.
We have a motion.
We have a motion and a second already.
Okay.
We're discussing.
Is there any more, is there public comment? Lauren wants to say something? Okay.
Thank you. I'm leery of this T2 business because now we've got a guy that's going to be in distribution, but the union's going to make you pay for a guy who has a T2. So you're going to be paying, you're going to be driving your Lincoln pickup around when you really need a Ford Ranger. And I'm just wondering if that's really efficient. I understand the situation of going forward to the next job. Everybody likes to work their way up. But also the other thing I would ask the board is if you do this and you require him to have a T2, are you going to be paying for the training? Because you could be shipping him off for training all over the place. So basically you're paying for his advancement on your own. In other words, I went to school to become a refrigeration technician, and that was on me. And anytime I wanted to advance, I went back to school on my own dime. Whereas it seems like nowadays it's the big deal is to get your employer to pay for all the stuff, so you just automatically flow on through. But when you're talking about the employer, you're talking about me. You're not talking about Bob Brown's plumbing service. You're talking about me. I have to pay that. So what I would ask the board is, what does the T2 cost to add that onto the job description? And how much is it going to cost for training for this guy? When you send him for training, remember, he's not going to be on the job. It's just like Kevin. He has to go for training, and when he goes for training, that's on our dime. I know he needs to go. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it is on our dime. So if we're going to put another person on and we're going to change the job description, we need to add all that stuff up, not just say, geez, it'd be great because Uncle Tom's going to get up at the plant sooner or later. And oh, by the way, we're going to train him, so he's going to be out 3 weeks a year going to school somewhere that we're going to pay for, that he's really not going to produce anyway. So maybe we need to think about that. Thank you.
Lauren, Jim's right behind to answer your question.
Yeah, I think currently we do pay for their CE credits for all the people that have certificates, whether they're in the distribution or in treatment. And actually, this will be less because this is a T2 where we were paying for a T3 for his CE credits.
Didn't I think my mother told me 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Do we know, we have other distribution system operators, correct?
This is actually the only distribution system operator, quote unquote. Right now the job is being filled by a treatment plant operator who's going around the distribution system and doing this work.
So he would be the only individual with the knowledge to take care of our distribution system?
He would be the only one doing this specific job. I don't know if he would be the only one with the knowledge to do it.
Treatment plant operators cross-train.
Yeah.
And we try to cross-train distribution people also. There's a lot of cross-training, Director Jacobs.
Distribution people, what's the difference between a distribution people and
I meant utility workers, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. That's the other people.
Okay.
It's distribution department.
Because I thought he just said there wasn't any others.
Keys is distribution
Field
department.
crew is utility workers.
Got it.
If I
Okay.
could talk about training, the drinking water branch allows the same training that you have, the same contact hours that you get for your distribution certification to apply for your treatment certification. So you have to gain contact hours once you have. And we arrange here to have no-cost training because we use the RCAC, Rural Community
Assistance
Corporation. It costs nothing. It's always around here. We don't go to AWWA because it costs too much. So our policy is we get no-cost training. Now, if somebody wants to take a correspondence course through California State University, Sacramento, to learn more about water treatment, that's their option.
So there's no cost to
Except their pay.
the district for this guy to achieve that additional certification?
So there's ways of, and they have to take a specialized course. That's on them.
Okay, and
We pay for their examination
Do we have to pay
fees.
for their time or anything?
Yeah, and we pay for their examination
Yes,
fees.
we let them go for the day. Absolutely.
And we reimburse.
And generally, but it's with us. It's not just by themselves usually, it's with other treatment staff that's going to training in the same car.
Okay.
We reimburse their course cost and their exam fee upon completion.
But realistically, to pass these tests, you have to study a lot of hours on your own time. There's no way you can pass these tests unless you do that. You can take training courses here and there, but you've got to study on your own time to pass these tests. And so there's
Well,
a
I certainly
commitment
have no
by the
problem
individual.
with it.
Absolutely.
If the guy wants to better himself, that's great. And if we do need those additional positions filled,
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay.
Thank you,
No
Jim.
more public comment, so all in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next one. This is something I brought up, the Corporation Yard Gate. Took pictures today, hopefully I don't have to show them to you, but some of the black pipe still has the white lettering on it. Other parts have rusted on it. If it was mine, I would take naval jelly and paint it with that, and seize up the iron and then paint over it with a spray gun. But instead, we're gonna spend up to $1,000. So,
It is true, it will last a lot longer and be nicer, but.
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, are you done?
Oh, I just was gonna ask, I'd like to go home tonight.
Okay.
Ask somebody to make a motion on this one. I think it's pretty simple.
I move approval to authorize the interim district manager to authorize Chico Colorcraft to perform the sandblasting and powder coating of the Corporation Yard Drive gate in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
Okay, so I did a little phone calling today, and I called Atomic powder coating, and they said, we'll come up there, take the gate off its hinges, bring it down there and powder coat it and bring it back, and if it needs to be sandblasted, it'll be $750 or less, and if it doesn't, it'll be around $500. And it'll be $50 for us to come and get it and bring it back.
We'll need to sandblast them.
So I'm thinking that,
Cheaper. I like cheaper.
not a big deal, but I just made one phone call. It took 2 minutes, and that was,
Did they get quotes?
Yeah, they did, here, yeah.
We got two quotes.
They didn't get it from Atomic, and
Not Atomic.
that one was kind of, Cliff mentioned that after the fact. So maybe with your motion, you can just authorize myself up to $1,000, and that I will contact Atomic. And
There you
if
go.
they're
Rex
Perfect.
Products does powder coating in Chico as well.
Who?
REX.
REX.
WREX, Rex
W-
Products in
Oh,
Chico.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It is WRE.
Okay, so we need to amend the motion so that it's not
Take out Chico Colorcraft.
up to instead of amount of.
I move that we amend the motion,
Just have
To
it, have
approve
the person that made them thing say.
the
she
interim
amends it.
district manager to authorize up to $1,000 for the cost of sandblasting and powder coating of the Corporation Yard gate.
Okay. I second.
Second.
I second.
Second. Any further debate or information about this? I'll call for the question. Please vote. Aye, everyone?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
We'll go on to the next thing. Thank you.
What was the name of your one?
Rex Products,
Rex,
WREX.
WREX, Rex Products in Chico, yeah.
They're on Meyer Street in
They're
Chico.
a die-caster.
Products. Okay. We'll call both of those.
If you know them, you
Right
call
around
them.
the corner
Get a
from
better
the other
price.
guys.
You know,
I know them too.
Kevin, you're up. You've got the interim district manager's report.
This is my first shot at this. So I kind of what I did was kind of bullet point list what kind of projects we have going on, so that we can kind of just and some of them they won't change for a while, but I just want to kind of keep them out there so that we know that they're still out there. Like the water rights, we haven't done much with the water rights. They're still out there. They're still going on. We haven't forgot about them, but I wanted to kind of list that. So I'll just kind of walk through it. The budget, you guys got your budget rough drafts today, and we'll be going on a budget workshop on May 31st at 9 a.m. Public's welcome. Public hopefully comes and has input. All districts' management will be present. They'll walk through, hopefully, their departments. They'll be able to answer questions. It's going to be kind of an informal, hopefully answering questions type of thing. So hopefully it's really valuable to everyone. That is where we'll talk about a lot of our projects coming up, where they're at, how we're going about them, maybe the philosophy of the budget, how it ebbs and flows, and it's kind of a roadmap, not a hard and fast type of thing. So that's what we'll be doing with that. The North Lake Boat Launch land acquisitions, we did purchase that 3 acres, and I believe we're still in the process of trying to move that grant. I'll let Jim speak upon that.
Really good news today. Very positive news. Talked to Boating and Waterways. They're on June 8. They're bringing their technical engineers to the site. That's a huge allocation of their resources that they don't normally do. So they're still very serious about moving forward. It's been quite a drama, hasn't it? And maybe you would agree with me. So,
Good.
that's good.
Nice.
Good news.
It is good news. Thank you.
Process water recycle project, I think we know where we're heading with that one. The B Reservoir design project, I think we know where we're heading with that one. You gave the contract out tonight. Staffing, we promoted 3 employees to open positions. These positions have been open for a while, and a lot of these staff members have been working in those positions for a long time also.
Great.
So we promoted a person to crew leader, to utility worker 2, and to a meter service person.
How many people we have in meter service now?
3.
3 people.
The PG&E DeSabla Centerville Powerhouse, we've issued the letter of interest, and everybody has seen that. And then I think Dustin might have more information in closed session. The district manager recruitment. The district has issued the RFP. We gave the people to respond by June 2nd for those RFPs. We've received one back, and it's actually from the one from down in Vallejo or wherever that is, and then our Napa, and we've received one response back that they weren't going to issue an RFP. So that's all the contact I think we've had from the RFP. And then the IBEW, we have had 2 meetings with our negotiating team, and so right now we'll be presenting that to you guys later on tonight also.
Okay.
I received a letter today from Department of Water Resources. You have the letter. And it's a reaction to the Orville Dam issue.
Oh.
And the letter is requiring us to do a study on both of our spillways to see how, I didn't scan a copy.
Can you read from there?
Here, take this.
How about the dam? Just on the spillways.
How about we read it?
Just on the spillways.
So it's requiring us to do a study on,
Each spillway.
on both of our spillways, and they're asking us to submit a work plan for each dam by July 15th, 2017.
Wow, that's fast.
Gosh.
The voice behind the letter is pushing us pretty quickly. This was my first, I got this about, I don't even know what time, maybe 2 o'clock today. So we haven't really been able to focus on it.
Yeah, I think we should agendize this for next month, and just so we can do some investigation. I read it. It's very odd. There's no the question to myself is what legal authority do they have to mandate us in this manner? Because there's going to be a cost associated with this.
Yeah,
If they pay for it, we're happy to.
You know, could this be an opportunity for us to gain some funding for Magalia improvements?
Magalia can't be improved, sorry.
Yeah.
You mean the town to the
So are you saying, Dustin, that only the Division
road.
of Dam
The road
Safety
and the
has
dam.
the authority
The dam
to
can't.
ask us to do something like this?
Oh, they've told us.
Well, I don't even know that. They have certainly some permitting type authority over you for your dams, but yeah, this is from Division of Safety of Dams. It's a division of DWR, but notice how they don't cite any legal provision, and they mention Governor Brown issued a plan.
His directive.
It's just worded oddly. I've seen a lot of state letters, I've seen a lot of state mandates, and they're usually pretty explicit about where their authority is coming from. This to me, and what I want to investigate is this more of a kind of a CYA type thing, where if there is another Orville-like spillway incident, they can point to a letter and say, hey, we told you to do this.
What if we told them it was
Some of
unsafe? What would they do, make us tear it down?
No, I don't think so. But
It's kind of a
you've
generic
got
letter.
dams that have been there for decades.
Damn safe.
Well, when we have our dams inspected, isn't the spillway part of the inspection of that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Itself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Why
how
can't we
often
just-
are we required to do that?
We just did it not too long
Yeah,
ago.
right.
Just submit the information that we've gotten.
We're highly regulated by them. We do an annual inspection. We use professional engineers from Gentera. Previously, we used URS. These people specializes in dam. Then, DOSD, Division of Safety of Dams, goes with us on the inspection. One of their experts. Then we write a technical report called a surveillance report. It's dam technical. Whoop.
Makes perfect sense.
And we understand.
Yeah.
We understand.
Okay, I have a file on damn stuff. Anyway, there's a
Yeah.
lot every year.
So it
Annually.
seems to me like we would have an inspection in hand that would be
Can I ask a question here? It says we, I'm assuming Department of Water Resources, completed a reconnaissance level assessment of the spillways at Magalia Dam and Paradise Dam. Were you contacted by anybody from Department of Water Resources to do an inspection?
Probably did Google Earth.
Do you have any knowledge of them?
No,
Google Earth or
but
an
Bill
airplane.
Pennington, who has been inspecting our dams for years,
Yes.
within the year has been out there doing, reconnaissance, surveillance. I mean, the report's called a surveillance report. And reconnaissance and surveillance are not far apart in the English language.
Yeah, I don't even know what a reconnaissance level assessment is.
Yeah.
So maybe let us do a little investigating and we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah.
I think a couple things we need to know, if there's any legality here and what our obligations are. And the other thing is if, because we all know that it's pretty poor, at least the Magalia side. And if that's the case, then we have to do something. Does this throw us out there where there might be some emergency funding available, which we can utilize to our benefit because they told us it's got to be done?
Okay, well, the basis is it's not on the agenda one, so we can't take any action.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, and so we should give it to Dustin, and if
He's got
it's
it.
really something we have to act on, well, we can call a special meeting and
Perfect.
take care of it.
Let's
Okay,
do it.
let's go on. Yes, Ward.
Just mention this to Jim. Is it possible this was done by an aircraft? And the reason I ask is because somebody, when we were standing out in the street talking about something else, says, that's the third circle that plane has made here. And as soon as it got done, it moved north. And you could hear that it was making another circle, and then it took off.
That's what I said. They probably used
Drove over-
airplane
drone
or
or-
Google Earth is probably all they used. Yeah.
I don't know, but
Well,
if you don't know, then hurt to ask, doesn't it?
No.
Like reconnaissance.
Okay, let's move on to the staff report, field operations. Yes, Kevin?
We actually skipped over item E. So I can take both of those fairly quickly. So report on soliciting proposals from retirement plan services. That actually is going to, it's been a long, lengthy process because I gave the RFP to both management and union, and they both had comments on them. And so it did come back to me a couple weeks ago. So that is going to come to the Finance Committee on tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning.
And I don't think there's going to be any substantial changes that will be noticed. Once that's approved by the Finance Committee, that'll go out hopefully maybe Friday. I'll just send it out Friday. And I'll be talking to a lot of the retirement plan providers at the conference. So I have set up meetings with them so to kind of meet and greet them. Changing trustees of employee retirement funds from district manager and chief financial to the board of directors. I don't think that we are the trustees. I think that you guys always, you can't make me the trustee. It's just like you can't make me the fiduciary. The board is always the fiduciary. I'm the administrator of it. Myself and George at the time and Christy, we're the administrators of the retirement plan, but we're not the trustees of the retirement plans.
Okay, I put that on the agenda because an employee called me quite upset, saying that you and George had been the trustees on it, and so that's the reason I put it there on the agenda to find out where it really lies. And if the employee calls me back, hopefully he'll read the minutes and figure it out.
Yeah, now, you guys are the trustees. I don't want to be the trustee. And so fiduciary, trustee is really very one and the same, where we're the administrators of it.
Okay.
So, hopefully that handles both of those.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
Okay, now we do staff report.
No, we do committee reports.
Committee reports. we
9.
skipped.
I'm not
Skip
even
9.
looking at the agenda, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I'll try to be brief. I want to talk about conservation, just give you a brief update. There are 5 bills in the legislature, all related to mandatory water conservation, and there's one budget trailer bill that I've mentioned in the past, 810. Aqua is supporting 2 of the 5 bills. They're opposing the other 3 policy bills, and then they're opposing the budget trailer bill. I think if it were me, or maybe even PID, we would be opposing them all, because they're requiring additional conservation at considerable expense when and they're taking away a level of local control. I think where Aqua, why they're supporting a couple, they're making a political decision, recognizing that something's going to pass. So if you want to try to shape something, you better be supportive of something. So that's where things stand. If I were to venture a guess, I think these bills, the leadership of the 2 houses are probably going to get together and collapse them into one bill, or maybe a couple separate bills. That's where it's kind of looking like it's heading to me. So we actually have another Aqua state. Take that back. We have an urban conservation workshop tomorrow that I'll attend, and then we have another meeting on Friday. So things I think will be moving pretty quickly over the next few weeks.
Hey, what's the latest on the twin tunnels?
We should agendize that in closed session. The hearing, I can give you a brief open session report. The hearing continues. I have been spending a lot of time in Sacramento on that, actually. We're still in the rebuttal phase of, remember the proceeding was split into phases. Right. So we're still in the first phase. The first phase was split into additional sub-phases. So we are now in a rebuttal phase in that first phase. Rebuttal is, as the name implies, kind of rebutting previous testimony that has been submitted. We will also have a surrebuttal phase here in the next month or so. Surrebuttal is rebuttal to the rebuttal. And then that will complete part one, and then likely late summer, maybe even into the fall, we'll start part two.
Are they gaining ground or not?
Well, as long as Governor Brown is, putting his political weight behind the water fix project, the tunnels, there's going to be movement on it. But it really doesn't make sense. It's at least $15 billion. There's not a lot, if any, additional yield from the project. In fact, some folks south of the Delta actually lose water based on modeling. They would have less water supply on an average annual basis than they would without the tunnels in place. So it just blows your mind why they would support it.
Legacy and legacy only. They're so concerned for their own back end.
Thank you.
Gosh.
So that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll go back to committee reports. Oh, wait, yeah.
Yep, 9.
I'm looking at two things that got myself confused. The Water Conservation Committee is primarily meeting on putting in the garden. They started work by putting post rock up there. The committee talked about that. Jim Lundini put that in the last couple of days. And then hopefully at the Conservation Committee, we're going to talk about where we're going to put the plants, where if the little gal has done her homework, which I hope she has. And then there's some other subjects, maybe about a fountain. And what else did you want to put on it, and something else?
For the next meeting?
Yes.
Just to talk about water conservation, about different things we as a district can do for our customers.
Okay. So we're going to add a couple of things to the conservation agenda that we haven't done yet. The Paradise Lake, and this is where Mark and we talked about different uses of recreation. We talked about the trails going up, which was talked about several years ago, going up the side of Magalia, right behind Dustin's map, and it would go up on the east side. And it was proposed to us by a trails group several years ago, and they're going to pull out maps on the trails that were suggested at that time and bring them to the committee to see if it's feasible or not. The NRCS district, I'm on the board there as an associate, I have no power. I found out their staff at the present time has people on it that can design trails, and that might be a possible help with us, and they do CEQA, so that might work into the Lake Committee, it might not.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that? In today's newspaper, there was an article, and my wife had mentioned it to me, about this group that is trying to connect bike trails all over the place. Mm-hmm. And she quizzed me, is there a way to create an alternate trail on the bike trail that goes around the public portion of Paradise Lake and have it loop back in another fashion to where they can make a circle because of the private property?
The hiking trails were talked about to be bicycle to. The things that have to be worked out is where do you put bathrooms? We have a road along the side there going up to the dam. We also have a road that comes down in another place which has 2 gates on it. We have to talk about public access. We have to talk about the homeless, because around Magalia Reservoir is the most problems we're having homeless. We'd hope that the trails would keep down the homeless problem, at least on the east side. The other part is right down in the corner. This was brought up in the Lake Committee meeting. So then we went over to the Kids' Day and all that finished, and that's in the agenda, the financial report and everything. And Mark, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think just the party, or excuse me, it was a party in the park. Kids Fishing Day was just a fantastic success, and thanks to everybody, Jim, and everybody that volunteered. It was great. First time I ever had been out there, and it was fun.
Now, Mark sent out an email to all the staff thanking them for participating. This was his idea. It was carried out, and I thought that was a great way to do it. Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
And community relations, that's Mark, you're the chairperson. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we met this Monday, and a couple of things. Mickey Rich is still, continuing to work with the updates with Tyler Technologies on our website design, to make it more user-friendly. One of the things she's working on, I think, is an online bill payment option, which would be pretty nice, so people could click on there and print their bill out at home. The big thing is coming up for this summer's Party in the Park. I think we already talked about that. We're gonna spend $500. We're gonna bet the $500 level, but we're getting quite a bit for our money, I think. Tanya can help me out on this. We also are, we're looking to see if we can get employees to participate if they'd like to man the booth with Cedar Creek, and so just on a voluntary basis.
And us too, yeah.
Yeah. So, and the theme this year, you can help me out here, Tanya, is I'm the boss. That's the theme, and the idea is to empower the community or the customers, and there'll be questions at the booth that they can. Here you go. Okay, thanks, Tanya. Why don't you? This is. Yeah. Please do. Yeah. Take over, quick. Yeah.
And I understand. We're going to do Party in the Park. We're going to, the directors and the committee thought that it would be neat to focus on different departments or different aspects of the district during each of the 6 weeks. So those staff people will be coming from those different departments, and one of them is on governance, and of course board members will be there as well. We're focusing on a theme of you're the boss, and if you're the boss of something, you need to find out about it. So that's how we're going to kind of hook them into it. And there'll be either a sticker or a pin that they'll get if they do a little quiz that night and they go around the booth and answer questions on it. That's our hook this year. Last year we had pictures. The year before it was conservation. So it's you're the boss, to emphasize again the community's partnership with the district. And in fact, the ownership would be a funny word for it, but it actually is the community's water district. So that's what it is. Anything else?
Thank you.
You did it well, Mark.
Oh yeah, well no, you got it down. And Laura and Ann, Laura from the front office, have been working on the bill itself and to make the. Excuse me.
Change the
Oh
format.
yeah, go ahead.
We've just been working to make it more interesting, more user friendly, and have more information for the customer.
It might even have some colors on it too.
And maybe another color besides blue and black and white.
It might
maybe.
be colorful.
We'll see.
And then we also discussed possibly having a district open house or tours of the district facilities, and we seemed like that was a positive idea that we might think about doing it later this year. So we're kind of tossing that around. If anybody has some ideas on it, let me know. Let us know.
Kind of always been done once a year or so anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think
it's going to increase it.
I don't know the history of it actually, if it's been done every year. But
We discussed that, and we discussed that trying to open it up to more people, and I think that's where the CR committee was looking at. We discussed having standing dates at the treatment plant once a month to have people that if they wanted to sign up for a treatment plant tour, having a standing every Tuesday at 1:00, sign up
like that,
and come and get a tour of the treatment plant. And so something where it's we're just showing that we're available for them, and we're putting it out there for them and see who takes us up on it.
yeah, we were trying. The idea was to just get more participation. Before there were tours, and apparently you had to sign up. It was kind of a formalized process, but if we can open up to more customers that could possibly drop in at different times or more times, available times, I think that would really enhance our relationship with our customers. So that's kind of where we're at. I think, is there anything else? Anything else?
We talked about that maybe being a small sponsorship of the ice rink.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about the ice rink. Thank you. Yeah, the ice rink, they're looking for sponsorships for next year. And if we did, we'd do it at maybe a $400 level.
That was all.
And you get a signboard on the inside of the ice rink for that. So when you're skating around, you can see PID logo or whatever we decide to put on there.
When you're falling.
Excuse me? When you fall into our sign. How about that?
And it's our frozen water.
Yeah, it's
right?
our water they're skating
That's
on.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Cliff hit it right there.
There you go.
We can play up
We could
and you're
have a
skating
little-
on PID water, right?
So you could never be on thin ice with PID. You're always on firm ice.
We could have our own little guy. We can call him Drippy.
We got all sorts of ideas here. You can see how this goes. Okay. So that's pretty much it, but a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of great ideas, so appreciate that. So, and thanks to Cedar Creek for putting together a lot of the agenda items. Thank you.
Staff and billing reports now. It's on page 104, beginning of it, and then it has all these charts going through. Hopefully most of the directors have looked at this. Do you have any questions about it? About different charts or anything else? The key page is 111, where we actually have things listed, how much water is going through the plant and that sort of thing, and different reports and NPDES and all that. The details are going, and Jim can answer any questions you might have about that. So, and then there's your Paradise Irrigation District, Kids Fishing Day. The financials they're not complete, but they're pretty good. Gives you a good idea how much it cost us to put it on, and details of all the costs, and pictures of the kids having a great time with their dads and Greg and so forth. Greg probably has trained more people to fish up there than most people have ever known. And then the production out of the water treatment plant, bar graphs, so forth, water treatment averages. This is really important information that you should look at. This is how things really operate in the district, and you know how much water we're putting through. Aquahawk registration, that comes to the Water Conservation Committee meetings, reports, but we're still, we're up to 2,800, so we're 28% of our people are using that, plus others who aren't on Aquahawk but can access their own water thing. And then here's your sales on water and others, how we're doing, accounts receivable. I usually look through this, but at this point, anybody have any questions about it? It's good information. You can look through it later and generate questions. The only thing we have left is closed sessions, or director's reports, before we go into closed session.
I had a question. I don't know if you know, Kevin, but on page 104, it talks about Anderson Brothers is working on an extension for a future housing development. Do you know how large that development's going to be?
17 houses? Is that what it is? Something like that?
Isn't it in 2 phases, though?
It could be.
Yeah, I think they got, I thought one was, maybe one's 10, one's 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They've already started. There are houses already being built.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Check it out.
I will. Thanks.
I had a question for Jim on your report. We had no violations for April, but would have had violations if we had the final limits in
Yes.
place? Do you look at that? Okay.
Yeah, way different.
Okay.
Way different.
Okay.
At 10 years, 7 years, we might have not violated final limits.
Once, twice?
Is that right? Oh, so it's
Yeah, mostly
okay.
we've
It's
been
going to be a regular thing
continual
if
violation.
okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any more? I don't think we have any action on it. It's mostly information for you.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the director's comments.
Normally we accept the staff report.
Okay.
Okay.
Move we accept the reports.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Georgiana.
Go ahead. Georgiana.
Okay, director's comments, if we could start maybe down here.
Yeah, on my visit with Kevin this morning, I asked him one thing. I know he's extremely busy. It's kind of low priority. But one of the items that came up during when we were campaigning, et cetera, and one person reminded me of it here shortly ago, and I do have it on a master list of several things in the future I'd like to address. But one of them that I asked him to ponder is, if you all noticed in postage in the list, we had $6,000 postage for the month. And that might have been other things we don't know he's going to check on. But a couple of people have said, well, if we were to go back to the billing every 2 months, we still bring in the same amount of money, but it would save, $40,000, whatever, a year in postage, just that alone. Maybe, and that's a real loose figure, but something to ponder. I'd like to potentially consider in the future, low priority item. But
Okay. And when you three get together and prioritize your things for the agenda, I'd like you to look at these. And if you want to look at them, do.
Sure.
Thank you. Was I supposed to keep one?
And yes. And it just,
There's
and
an
it
extra. Never
does
mind.
what
I
we were
got one.
talking about, moving the committee reports where they should be, kind of like, that's,
Very good.
that's my idea of an ideal agenda, but just to
Good.
kind of see what you think, and maybe we can
Nice.
talk about it in the future, or,
Thank you, Ann.
since I didn't get to divide the question and bring it over there. Those are my
I
comments.
think this is excellent. This
Yeah, good.
overview you just gave.
Yes.
Mark?
I had a question for Kevin, and maybe I just am out of the know or something, but you're going to be gone the 20th through the 25th, so who's going to be the person that sits in for you?
Georgiana becomes interim.
It'll be me. It'll be me. It'll be me out of the office.
Really? You don't? Okay, so
So any business that needs to be handled, I'll handle out of the
okay.
office. So at that point,
okay.
that's a good point, though.
All right. Well, and that's one of my things that I'd like to work on too. Would be to have a hierarchy, or just at least have someone that we know is going to be that person.
Yeah.
I've mentioned that I think in previous meetings. So, anyway,
But if things really hit the fan,
Uh-huh.
then Keith O'Brien would probably step in as the.
Does he know that?
He will. He does now. He's looking up his-
Good old Keith. Okay. All right. Thank you, and thanks to everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
I shall endeavor to use the word should more frequently.
Thank you, my friend.
You
Thank
shall.
It's up to you, boss.
Going home. He's going home already.
Where I proposed and the reason I brought it in here with a magnet was to show everybody,
Show and tell. Huh?
show and tell, that's dry soil, and
Wow.
that's how much
Iron
iron
is in
Wow.
is in the soil. So that's how the wetlands would control the movement. And it's a corrosion problem, because they don't want iron rust, the aluminum corrodes, but if you put them on an iron.
Aluminum's not magnetic.
Aluminum bolts in it, they'll corrode. So it's just an illustration of the soil we have up there. And the idea being, like I mentioned earlier in the meeting, is that we need to test this and test other soils for a soil test, which can be done fairly economically. We have 2 labs in the county that routinely run agricultural soil tests and test around the ponds, where this is, the proposed area for the wetland, to see what we actually have, what the percentages are, and then turn that information over to an engineer that has somebody in a firm that has something experience with wetlands and would be able to use the information to come up with how big do the wetlands have to be to actually do the work, which I don't know. And next month, I hope to put on the agenda about 10 minutes of wetlands, dig out of my files all the stuff I had prepared last year before the recall started and everything. And I agreed with the recall committee not to bring it up. And this is the time I can bring it up now. We have a new board, you guys are working on things. You'll at least listen to me and hear me out. And I know Jim isn't in favor of wetlands. So anyway, I'll propose it and show all the different research I went through to come to the conclusions that the wetlands would actually control what little aluminum or alum goes into our ponds. It would mean revising the ponds, but not putting bottoms in it, but just making them bigger. And then the wetlands would be big, and it would take care of the flow of excess water and control the aluminum down to a point that we can keep the NPDES permit and dump the water into the lake directly and hopefully take the sample where it mixes. So I'll present that, and you guys
Good,
can have
great.
fun throwing information back and asking questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to do that. That's the end of the director's comments. And
During the closed session.
we'll go to adjourn closed session. There are two different things I'll read to everybody knows what we're doing. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, one case, government code, and it's Henrichs versus JM Manufacturing Company, and real property negotiations, subject to PG&E's DeSabla project and Miocene Canal. Minison Law Firm, PID staff will be the negotiators. Conference with labor negotiations. Georgiana, can you give us a 5-minute break before we go into closed session? Thank you. And that's it. We'll come out and announce from closed session, which usually isn't much of an announcement.